Welcome to Dogman TP Hunting, and if you're listening to this, it'll be on the Interdimensional Voyagers podcast. Thank you for joining us. I'll just change the camera around a little bit. Let's have a look. Biddy-doo. Right. Hi. Welcome. Thank you for joining. Good to see you. Hope you had a good week. It's Friday. Yes. Brilliant. Another weekend. Comes around so quickly. It's nice when it comes around, but then it goes again quite quickly. The weekend tends to. So it's a bit of a shame. Let's see who we've got on the chats. Larry. Hello, mate. Hope you're keeping well. Thank you for joining. We've got Kate. Hello, Kate. We've got Keith. Hello, mate. Sasquatch sister. How you doing, Dawn? And Wolfborn. Hello. Hello, Wolfborn. Let's have a look. Let's go around it. Nayfair. Hi there. What is tonight's topic? Nayfair. Okay. Oh, Dragonborn as well. Hello. Thank you for joining. And thank you for joining as well. Nayfair. Let's have a look. First time, it said first time. Right, first time in channel, though I have been watching from the sidelines for a few times. Okay, cool. All right, well, thank you for joining us. It's good to see you in the comments. That's really cool. And the topic for tonight. Wow. First of all, I'm going to bring on the guest. Well, co-host actually, to be honest with you. I'm going to bring on Natalie Mosley. Hello.
Hello. You're right.
Oh, yeah, good. Thank you. Thank you for coming on.
That's all right. I'm glad I'm a co-host with no powers over anything. So rather than buttons to press.
Join a club. I don't have any powers either. I don't have any powers. No,
I just sort of shift, powers anyway.
I just shift stuff along. That's all I do. I kind of like just shift some stuff along on the laptop here. That's about it. Powers wise, no. But yeah. So tonight's topic, what I'm going to do is I want to have a little look and just basically discuss some of the things which we see on social media. So if you're lucky enough to have your post up, anyone out there, we may very well have a look at it tonight. And also I'm going to bring up another very special guest. I shall bring him on now, or her, should I say. Boop boo doo. Okay. Right, let's have a look. Oh, hi. You are live on Friday Night Files show, and there's people both watching you and listening to you. Do you want to say hello to the people?
Hello, everyone, on the Friday Night Files show. It's great to be here, and I hope you're all enjoying the show.
Yeah, cool. Okay. Did you hear that, Natalie?
Yeah.
Is everyone here? Yeah, excellent. Yep. Okay. Brilliant. Okay. So what we're going to do is tonight, can you help us by giving a few views that you have on posts that we see?
Yes, I can
Oh, hang on. that didn't last very long. Let's have a look.
I was going to say you were talking about superpowers.
I know, that's it, exactly.
Like superpowers.
Yeah.
This is why I can't have robots, because mine would just automatically be random.
What we're talking about is my superpowers failed me because you disappeared on us.
I take it that was AI or some kind of construct.
Okay, I think so. Yeah. Okay. Right. What I'm going to do, I'm going to bring you up in a minute, just to have a little chat with us, if you don't mind, about some posts and different subjects. Can I ask first of all, What reference material do you use? What have you got access to for your vast amount of knowledge? I'll tell you what I would like to know. I'd like to know really about do you have access to any thesis or scientific texts or any books which are not available to the public?
Are we supposed to be able to hear it, Phil?
Okay. Right. Hang on. Hang on. It may not have come up. Did it come up on your? Did it come up or not? Okay.
No.
All right then. All right. Let me get it up. Let me get it up. What I'm going to do first is let's get it up because I want to ask that question and share the answer. Hi. I was asking, what database have you got access to, and do you have access to any databases that we're not allowed to view? Is it all public databases that you have access to, or do you have access to maybe thesis texts or writings or books which are not readily available to the public?
I was trained on a massive data set of publicly available
Yeah.
text and code. I do not have access to information that is not public, such as private theses or scientific texts that are not available to the public. Is there anything else I can tell you about my knowledge sources?
Do all AI models, do they have the same data set to fall back on to reference?
No, not at all. Different AI models use different data sets to train them. The data sets can vary in size, scope, and type of information they contain. This is partly why different AI models can have different capabilities and limitations.
Okay, well, we'll talk a bit more about that later. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm glad I could help. Feel free to ask if you have any more questions later.
Okay, that's cool. Right, what I'm going to do now, Natalie, I'm going to bring up some Facebook. Let's have a look and see. Boo, 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 boo. Let's have a look on here. Right. Let's turn that off. Okay, then. Right. First thing is this. I don't know if I'll bring it up bigger. The design I found interesting. It's brought up by Elisa Better Byron, UFO crop circles. I found this one really interesting. I hadn't seen it before. That is just. Do you think that's not man-made? That can't be. What do you
Is
reckon, Natalie?
to start off with, it looks like I don't know if it's real. This is my problem with the current AI things, because it's like, when things like this come up and they look too good to be true,
Yeah.
and it doesn't. I mean, I'm not a massive. I mean, I will admit, I'm not a massive expert on crop circles and things, but they've never done pictures before, have they? And that looks like a picture. And the Death Star is my first thought when I saw it. I thought either that or from the side it looks like a guy with a moustache eating an Oreo. So that's why I thought it was a joke to start off with, because I was like, oh look, there's a guy with a moustache and he's eating a biscuit, and then I realised it was supposed to be a crop circle. So
Yeah, it does
Like,
actually. It does look like he's eating an Oreo.
yeah,
And he looks like he's sort of like looking around some drapes.
with a headband on. It's like from the side anyway. It's like it tells you how I view the
Yeah.
world, doesn't it?
Mate,
But it's like, but I've never seen an intersecting set of cards. Does that happen where they intersect each other like that? I mean, if it was the left-hand one on its own, then I could believe it a little bit more, because that tends to be more of the geometric type thing. But the other one, it just looks like a picture of a grin from the right way up. Looks like a picture of a grinning grey
yeah,
slash reptilian type.
they're kind of like they're saying that's binary right hand side. You know the all the dots dribbling down the curtains.
Oh yeah.
They say like they're working out, but once again, it could be that we're you know, kind of like looking too deeply into it. Maybe it is just purely aesthetic. You know,
To be honest, it does look like a grey taking a selfie. And then, because it looks like it's got a cheesy grin, and then it's just like imprinted down the field. It's like, you know how you see the cartoons of the teenage aliens, and they're doing the crop circles as a sort of like, you know, prank. And it looks like it looks like somebody's got hold of the camera. Sorry, I can't take this one seriously.
No, I must admit, I thought it was interesting, but they have got what? There was a listening post in the UK.
Yeah.
People could let us know in the comments. I forget now where it was, but there was some listening post of one of these big radar dishes, not radar, but listening post dishes, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a crop circle that was created in a field adjacent to this base, and it was interesting because it was a duplicate of Carl Sagan. You know, when he done that for Voyager 1, he done that on gold. He done like DNA, our DNA. He put on essential information about us, so that if any beings out there were kind of like you know reading it, they would have an idea of where we were in the universe. They'd have an idea of what we were, and they'd have an idea of whether or not we were bipedal, that we lived on a planet called Earth. You know, all this like quite a lot of information. Carl Sagan, clever guy, like kind of put out the basic building block information for us. And then this field where this radar thing, it came up with the same design Carl Sagan did, but it was changed slightly.
Okay.
Yeah, it was really like that interesting. It was like, oh wow, and it was changed slightly. So it was almost like, well, okay, thank you for your message. This is where we live, and this is what we look like. Yeah, and that was a little bit.
They've had a reply from that. Is it SETI? Or is that the American version, the one where they send off the signal into space? Or was that the one where they sent it off in a probe thing, where they had the information encoded?
That's right. They had that wow signal they picked up, didn't they? I still never really made much sense of that wow signal, unless you know, I suppose. But evidently, they say that the configuration of the signal, the way it came back, and the duration of it was. But then later on, people have turned around and said, no, that was interference by electromagnetic waves around the Earth, and it's all just so it's like, what really? But
I think the question is if the interference is coherent, because it's like if you send a message out and your message comes back and it's distorted but it makes sense, wouldn't you have to question that a little bit, because you would assume that interference would make it not make sense, if that makes sense. If that comment makes sense.
Yeah, you would kind of assume that, wouldn't you? You'd think it would
assume that, like, interference is like chaos, isn't it? So one would assume that interference would deconstruct the quality of the information, whereas if it's coming back and it's making more sense, then I would. It
Yeah,
could still be interference, to be fair, but you would have to question it if it was
yeah.
making, if there was something there. It's
Fair point.
it's
Fair point. Yeah, no,
I would
quite true.
assume. I mean, not
Yeah,
necessarily true, but it's very
fair
rare for
point.
interference to make things more clear, is it? So,
No, no,
but
fair point. I mean, I suppose really, yeah, it would, yeah, 'cause it would muddle things up, and it if it was interfered with, to any extent, the message, unless the message yeah, no, I see what you mean. Exactly, yeah, I agree with you. 100%, I agree with
yeah.
you.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
only
I
way
do.
I could think it could make more coherence is if like if you've got two wave patterns and they intersect and it creates a third wave pattern, but then that would be a regular thing. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I'm just philosophizing, really. I don't have a base of science for it, but I would assume that if they've got signal backing, it makes sense that it can't just be, potentially anyway, or hypothetically, it can't just be interference, because interference rarely increases understandability of something.
Make it more random, wouldn't it?
I would have thought so, like from like philosophically and logically, yeah. Although, like I say, if you're talking about signals, I assume that there's different interplays of the energy. So, say that they know what they're analyzing to a degree, but it's like some of the
Mm.
stuff you get from the astronomers when they say, oh, this is happening and this is happening, and all they've got is like signals to interpret. And I'm like, I was blown away by how they even attempt to interpret what they're picking up based upon the way a photon bounces or a molecule bounces or an echo. It's so yeah,
Yeah.
it is quite interesting, like how they can understand these things. So I suppose you think as experts they would know, but there's a lot they don't know. So I suppose they can't really say for 100%
Yeah.
certainty, can
Right,
they?
alright, and let's have a look. Hiya. Can I ask you, with the wow signal, recently they've said that the wow signal could be interference from our atmosphere that has adjusted that signal, and we just saw it as being a message, but actually was it wasn't. It was just a chance. Do you think that the wow signal could have been a chance, or do you think it was actually a predetermined message?
The wow signal has been a mystery for decades. Scientists have considered various possibilities, including interference, earthly sources, and a signal from an extraterrestrial intelligence. While the interference theory is one possible explanation, there's not been definitive evidence to confirm it. The origin of the signal remains unknown. Is there anything else I can tell you about the wow signal?
Is the oh, yeah, can you tell me the wow signal, do we know where it came from?
The WOW signal was detected in 1977 by the Big Ear Radio Telescope in Ohio. It was a strong, narrow band signal that lasted for 72 seconds. Scientists have tried to figure out the origin, but they haven't found a definitive answer. It's one of the most intriguing mysteries in the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. Is there anything else I can tell you about the WOW signal?
No, that's all at the moment, thank you. You see, that's the
You're
thing
welcome. Let me know if you have any other questions.
that's the thing, isn't it, Natalie? It's like, I read on a post, that the wow where Three Eye Atlas is coming from, it's in the same direction as the wow signal came from.
Mm.
But, it's sort of, there's other posts that I read that it doesn't. It's hard, isn't it hard to know, isn't it? It's like all of this stuff, it's like with ghosts and with the paranormal, there's always, that, mistake, that chance that, that joke, that absurdity of it, which makes it kind of just unbelievable.
I have
And
to
yet,
admit, when she was explaining it, I was sitting here thinking, oh, it's kind of like an interstellar EVP then, basically.
yeah,
Where you get this short burst of things, something that you think makes sense, but everyone's like, no, it's not. And you're like, but it's a name. How can it be random? And it does sound like it's the star version, the galaxy version of an EVP.
yeah. Well, no, that's right, isn't it? That's
Yeah.
complete. Yeah,
Yeah, because
yeah,
I think this is the thing, the argument I've always had with the whole science, with people's understanding of science, is like everyone thinks science is an absolute field, and it's not, because for everything that says, one scientist will say it comes from this direction, and another scientist will say the exact opposite, and they've both got studies to prove their points. And you're like, so the the science is never settled. Any settled science is wrong, probably. So it's like because if it can't be questioned, it's a fundamental absolute. And it's like, and science never deals in absolutes. It usually deals in probabilities, from my understanding. So it's like, you could say I've got 99% certainty that this is it, but if everybody's got a point of view and they're a scientist and their point of views are opposing, how do you interpret it? It just basically means you haven't got enough information, doesn't it? So it's like
yeah.
to settle it into a more sort of like, a more coherent fashion. But I've lost
There's
my point. Oh yeah, interstellar EVPs. That was my point.
interstellar
Yeah,
EVPs. Yeah,
yeah, about
with
it going from different directions. It's like, yeah, because we don't really know, because it's still a field of research, isn't it? It's like
it
interstellar
is.
physics and things.
I
So
mean, science is only really as good as the detection used and the understanding
mm,
of what and the understanding of the probability of a result. So what I mean by that is um, we can uh, we can, but we have to interpret the result correctly. And usually,
mm,
tests will give us a result, but it's up to us to interpret that result and place it in that nice little box to fit our required answer. So once again, it brings down the scientific study comes down to human interpretation and placing that interpretation to try and fill a void of understanding.
yeah, it's also about choosing which aspects of the information you interpret, because that's how they discovered chaos theory, wasn't it? Because originally the interpretations, they'd say you'd have linear data points, but then you'd have outliers, and the original thinking was to ignore the outliers because they weren't the
Mm,
average. and
yeah.
and it was only when someone questioned the outliers that they discovered, and started studying chaos theory and the idea of the outliers. So it's like, yeah, so you are right. The interpretation of it's very important, but it's also ensuring you've got the right data that you're interpreting, because you can spin it anyway depending upon how you extrapolate from the data you've got. And like you say, your recording devices are also important, because that's what I always said about the paranormal stuff. It's like, just because we can't prove that it doesn't exist doesn't mean that it doesn't. It could possibly mean we just haven't developed the tech to record it
Yeah.
properly, or we're looking at the wrong data points, like you say. It's that there's a problem with this kind of thing, isn't it? It's so much grey area. It makes
It's
it very, very difficult to know which way to go as well. What to sort of sink
yeah.
your attention into.
Do you know,
Uh,
I now really believe that the best detector, rather than a EMF and a K2 and any other bit of tech, the most reliable detector is us when it comes to
mm,
paranormal. It really
yeah,
is the most, kind of, we can interpret that sense, that feeling of something there, Natalie.
yeah,
Without actually seeing anything, we can kind of almost premeditate something happening. We can walk into a place. I'm sure you're the same. You can walk into a place and get that bad feeling, get that feeling which is kind of like there's something odd, off.
I have
here.
to admit, it's with doing the body work on the horses, it's like you do discover that a body's not just a body. It's like, you know, and that makes you realize, like you say, that the universe is not what we think it is, because even just doing like healing work on the horses, I mean, I've had so many strange things happen, and it's like, and you find that, like you say, your sense perception of what's going on wouldn't necessarily be picked up terribly accurately by something until like way down the line. And it is quite interesting, like you say, what you pick up on, and what's not noticed as well. It's yeah, I do think we've got a lot more to our senses than what we're told in terms of how we perceive things and why as well. Because it's like, you know, you
Mm,
could argue that, you know, everyone says, oh, you know, you know, like with pareidolia, oh, we're designed to see faces, you know,
yeah,
you know, from a baby, we're matrixed to see a face. And my argument is like, we're designed to see faces because the faces are there. So it's like, if you see a face in a tree and then go away and look back and the face is still there, you're like, yeah, that's the knots on the tree trunk. If you see a face in a tree and the face moves, that face is there. And then when you look away and come back and the face is no longer there, the face was there. You know, so
yeah,
it's like, it's sort of like, my argument was like, we're designed to pick up on these things, and that's why we see them, not because they're not there. If that makes sense. It's the opposite way. It's like we invent, you know, why did we invent eyesight, and to be able to pick up on light? And if we don't have eyes, does light, you know, it's like, how else do we sense light? It's like, well, we could sense it via feeling and stiff, you know, things like that. So
mm,
it's just sort of yeah, the human bodies, or even just bodies in general, are quite complicated things on many different levels. I mean, I've had things come through in bodies that aren't the person or the body. So it's like, you know, when you're like, wait a minute, I've accessed another dimension here, and there's another consciousness there, and the body's a conduit for it. And it's like, then you start questioning, like, well, what is 3D reality? But that's probably a bit deep.
right. Okay, yeah. Um, right. For people at home, listen, if you've got questions, which I know you're going to have questions, they're going to be called out towards the end of the show. Okay, I'm going to, Roxy and admin's going to block them all up, star them, and then bring them up at the end of the show. If you've got any questions, and also if you've got any questions for AI, by all means, put that, and I'll see what AI says to you in answer to your question. Yeah, it's I don't know, Natalie. It's a funny one, isn't it? It's like with especially with paranormal, it's um a, a certain amount of it. I think that for, you know, when things happen to people that are already aware or open-minded to the paranormal.
Mm.
Because it always seems to be two distinct types of people. The people where, "No, no, well, I don't believe in that rubbish because it's, you know, I live in a very black and white world, and anything, are you sure you haven't heard anything?" And you're like, "No, no, no, no." And everything is accountable, Phil. You know, that creaking door, the curtain moving when there was no draft, and I looked up and the curtain just moved. Yeah, but that could have been no, it was just honestly, it was just a draft or a spider swinging by. There was always something to account for it. Or you get the other sort, the other type of person who is more aware or open to this, to that world. And that's the type of person that things seem to happen. Now, my question is this to you. Do the paranormal happenings still happen to people that don't believe, that live in a black and white world? Do the paranormal happenings still happen? And it's just they don't witness it because they can't witness it because they're blinked to it.
I
Do you
think
think
so.
that's
I always used to think of it in terms of like eyesight. If you're nearsighted, you can't see Is it distance if you're nearsighted?
Yeah.
Whichever way around it is, it's like if you can't see more than 10 foot in front of you, then I could tell you there's something going on that hill 5 miles away, and it's up to you then whether you believe me or not. It doesn't mean it's not happening. It's you just can't see it. So I always think sometimes, like with paranormal stuff, like we just have a different 2020, you know, like we're not 2020 vision, or we could be have a different vision. And it's like, and the people that can't see it perhaps are nearsighted or farsighted, and they can't see it. And it because and I think it does still happen, because it's like when you talk to most skeptics, there have been things that happen in their lives that they can't explain. They just choose not to see it as unexplainable. They all have everyone's got a ghost story, everyone. It's just they don't always see it as a ghost story, or they choose not to interpret it that way, maybe. You know, I had an argument with somebody a little while ago. He said he was rational and that I was illogical, that I was crazy because I was into the paranormal. And I said, okay, you're rational, but I am logical. It's like, so I come at it from, is it this, is it this, is it this, is it this, is it this? And then I was explaining about my theories. It's like, if I call it coincidence stacking. So if you have a set of coincidences that all stack up, the more coincidence you have stacked up, the more likely it is to be a certain thing. And it's like, and he was going, oh, I'm rational, I've never had this, that, and the other happen. And yet the more I talked to him, the more things that he'd had happen to him that were unexplainable. But he literally was like, no, this doesn't exist. And I'm like, well, what was that? What was this? And then he said, I've never seen a ghost. And I said, have you gone looking for one? And he was like, well, no. And I was just like, well, I sat there in his house and watched an orb go past. I didn't tell him at the time, but I sat there and watched an actual orb go past, you know, about this yay, I did my camera about yay big, along his ceiling. And it's like, I knew it was his mother because I'd met his mother before many years ago. And it's like, but I didn't tell him that. And I'm like, you're sitting here telling me you don't believe in anything, don't believe in an afterlife, don't believe in this, that, and the other. You've told me 3 stories that are potentially paranormal in nature, and I've literally just seen something paranormal happen in your house, and you nothing. And I was like, you know, I said, you are rational, but I am logical. There's a difference. There's a massive difference between rationality and logic. And it's like, and I work on logic, so I explained how I went about with the paranormal investigation, the questions I asked, you know, the parameters, this, that, and the other. And he was like, oh, all right, okay, well, yeah, no, that is actually quite logical. And I was like, yes. So if logically I've run through this checklist of things and then this thing is still here, then I have to put it in the curiosity category.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
I think the thing with it is a lack of curiosity as well. You know, a lot of people are like, I don't want to know. I'm not curious about it. So I'm instantly going to lock down anything that is outside the normal, that I, you know, because I do tend to find that. I mean, some of it is like people literally can't see what's in front of them. And, you know, like say like the short-sighted, long-sighted thing. But I think with other people, it's a choice and a lack of curiosity, because I think underlying a lot of skepticism in people is actually fear. And they just won't admit it because they're rational and they can't be afraid of something that doesn't technically exist. And in order to admit that it exists, it then changes your worldview into something that's unpredictable, uncontrollable, and terrifying. So it's sort of like, you have to wonder. Like, I think there's a lot of intersections of things going on, because, but like I said, nearly everybody I've spoken to has a ghost story, and I'm like, but they don't necessarily see. I'll tell you actually one good example of it. It's Wuthering Heights. Right, I like the book Wuthering Heights, and I was talking to a lady about it the other day, and she says, "Oh, I can't understand it. How do people see it as a romance?" And I was like, "Wait a minute, it's a romance. I read it as a ghost story. To me, it's a ghost story. It's like it's not romance at all, because the characters are like super toxic. there's nothing romantic about it. But she was like, the mainstream view of it is that it's a romance, and I'm like, no, it's a ghost story, and that's a similar kind of viewpoint. And
it's your interpretation.
Exactly the same thing, you know. And take this, because I mean, I do like the book. I mean, it's depressing, But at the same time, as a ghost story, it's a brilliant ghost story. And it's like, but as a romance, to me, it doesn't make a lot of sense. It's illogical. So I would then argue it's not a romance. And then the mainstream would argue it is a romance and I'm the crazy one. So it's like, it's that switch of perspectives. But, it is a thought experiment. I do quite a lot on how, about whether people perceive paranormal phenomena. But I think they do exist even without people. It's like the chief.
I think you are completely right, and I do agree with you when you say that people are some people are scared by it. It's almost the same thing as you could use the analogy of if like I had a cancer scare, a few years back, and I remember my mum saying, first of all, "Don't say that word. Don't say the C word." I was like, "Well, why
The big
not?"
C.
She said, No, don't say that word because it's almost." She won't say it. She still won't say it
Yeah.
because she said it's almost as if not exactly scared, but scared to mention it in case it happens.
Yeah, they have done studies though that showed that people that receive those kinds of diagnoses, it does affect them. So it's like, but it's like a spell then, isn't it? You
Yeah.
don't mention the word and then it doesn't exist, or you don't attract his attention. But
Yeah.
there is a big, I have heard that before when people are like, oh no, you can't say it, it like it's like Harry Potter,
Yeah.
isn't it, where you can't say
Yeah.
but but then you get into the whole shaky area of belief then, don't you, and the placebo, nocebo and all that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. It kind of, and then that leads straight on to, if it is a case of mentioning by mentioning something, it creates that something. Then it goes on to reality, doesn't it? And that's
I can understand it. I mean, like I say, there's a lot of people that say they're not frightened of things like that, but when you actually try and talk about it, they lock up on you. It's like, because I've said, like, a lot of people have told me ghost stories, like, oh, I saw grandma at the bottom of the bed, and they were like, what about you? And I was like, I've had entities, things trying to cause me harm, this, that, and the other. And they're like, oh, don't say anything, don't say, I don't want to know about that. And it's like, how do you deal with it? And I was like, because I have to. And it's like, so
right. Yeah.
and you're just like, but if you want to believe that it's all just grandmas, that's fine. I'd rather believe it was all just grandmas, because I don't really, because it is terrifying seeing the world in that way. But it's so I think a lot of it as well is like what your mind is capable of understanding as well, because I think people understand what's in front of them, but when you start getting abstract, even like from a philosophical point of view, it's like they stop understanding what you're talking about, or they get scared because what you're talking about suddenly destabilizes. My mum's the same sometimes when I talk about like that broader context of some things. Oh no, don't say that. Oh, I don't want to know.
Yeah.
The world's a horrible place. And it's like, well, it's relative, I suppose. But it's like, I was like, well, how can you be informed if you're not informed? But then, like you say, you get to a point where your brain starts going, this is too much for me to deal with. I can't deal with it. And I wonder if the paranormal's a similar thing. It's like, you can understand, you can accept certain things, but not other things. It's like there are certain paranormal things that I find utterly terrifying. And aliens, I was terrified of aliens for a long, long time, of no apparent reason. X-Files, I blame it on X-Files. But,
Was it because of X-Files?
I don't know, because I wasn't really interested in aliens and things until I watched X-Files. But there's something about the Greys that just struck a nerve. It's just, I had to stop watching it. I just couldn't deal with it.
Oh, it got that bad. It was that bad with you that you had to stop.
Yeah, I had to. Yeah, So I didn't get to see the show slide down into its decline.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the first three
I
seasons,
know.
I absolutely loved it. But yeah.
It was a real gradual decline. I think 16 seasons, something ridiculous like that,
I did make it through all the seasons in the end when I got a bit older, and it's like I had to deal with the UFO thing anyway. So it was like Bigfoot as well. I saw a program on Bigfoot when I was like 6, terrified of it, absolutely terrified of it. I couldn't even look at the pictures. It's just like, and it's only in the last, like, since I've spoke to you about 2 or 3 years where I've been able to even approach the subject, and it's like without actual terror, But yeah, it's kind of strange, and yeah, I'm there sort of like talking about demons and entities and this, that, and the other.
I know
And,
you can. Yeah, you can waffle on about ghosts and paranormal till you're blue in the face, can't you? You're fine with that.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe it is just a limit of, your brain can only understand a certain number of things and a certain level of parameters. And like with some people, they have their eyes opened, it's like they have access to more information or a different parameter, or a paradigm shift where you think is one way and then it's suddenly turned on its head. And it's like, so it is possible, but I think people reach a limit. And it's like, I find it when I talk to people very often, it's like you always find their limits after a little while of talking to them. And you're like, okay, I can't go beyond that point. It's almost like a block. So yeah, I don't know. I think about it quite a lot, to be fair. It's like a philosophical, and perhaps more than science. But
some of the best guests I've ever had on have been the ones which have had a limit, where you've mentioned stuff and they turned around and said, I'm not prepared to talk about that, Phil.
Yeah.
And that sounds really sort of like, it sounds, it doesn't sound like a feasible interview with them saying that. But, before we went on, I was chatting to them about it and, about different stuff. And it's happened about 3 times now. And, and I said, look, what are you happy talking about? And I've given them an outline. I give people an outline of what I'm going to talk about if it's a particular event that's happened in their life. And I remember one chap I was talking to, and it was in reference to him seeing Portal, and stuff. And I asked him about the other witnesses, and there were certain things that he said I don't want to mention. I don't want to mention, what they saw, and he was very staunch in that. And I think, that's kind of and there's been other times where people have seen, especially UFOs and aliens, especially aliens. There seems to be something with aliens more so than with the creaking old haunted house. It seems to be more alien wise, where people kind of have a full stop, no comma. It is a full stop.
Yeah, season 2 of X-Files done.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly.
No, it's funny. It is well, it's not funny, but it's an interesting phenomenon. It's like I always find this when I'm talking to people, because I'm so curious about so many things, and I've learned things that I didn't even want to know, that have like say they shake your sense of reality. But at the same time, it's like I'm endlessly curious. And whereas I do tend to find that people do have their little bubbles of understanding, and you can talk to them quite happily within that bubble, and they know what they know, and that makes them engaging and interesting. And I sometimes get jealous of them for that, because it gives them a certainty that I don't have, because my brain's like, wait a minute, it's like, but what about all these other things? But yeah, it is quite curious. I find that the mind of perception and consciousness very curious in that respect. But yeah, people nearly always have a limit of either what they're willing to believe or what they're capable of believing and seeing. I mean, I don't even think it's about belief as well. I had this other argument with the same chap that was rational about belief. He says, well, you believe in the paranormal. I said, I don't believe in the paranormal. It's happened to me. It's like the weather. It's like
The
I
difference.
had no
Yeah.
choice but to accept it. And then my world worked better when I did, because for a long time I was like, well, people are telling me this isn't real, so it can't be. So I'm going to be logical and rational about it and sort of explain it in other ways. I'm like, it doesn't work. And my brain's like, it doesn't work. You have to accept it. And then when you accept it, you start going, well, how can this be, rather than why it's not? And it's yeah, I've lost the train of my thought now, but
No, I get you. I get you.
yeah,
But I mean,
but,
you also uh, even though it's happened to you, like the weather happens, um, you also, to a certain degree, must have a belief in the possibility, because otherwise, if you didn't have that conundrum of a possibility, then you wouldn't have interpreted. Say
um,
that friend you were talking to, you know, he said, no, 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 I haven't witnessed anything. And you said, no, I have. I saw an orb. And you both witnessed it. He saw it as a light going across, which could have been a reflection from the window, could have been, you know, anything. Do you think that you interpreted that as being an orb because you had previous experience of seeing an orb, or
I
are aware of orbs? See
think
what I mean?
I think it's more a case of my awareness was too expansive to fit into the narrow confines of what I was told that was possible. So my brain was like, well, I'm picking up on this, that, and the other, and you're telling me that it can't be that way. So therefore I'm wrong. So I must doubt my senses. But I'm still getting these things that don't make sense. This information, this awareness. It's a bit like people with a weather sense. You know, like most people are sort of like, you know, after, I mean, I'm really bad with the weather, but I can tell you when the barometric pressure changes because I'll get a migraine. So it's like, and I can tell you when there's a solar flare happening as well without knowing, because I'm affected by it. But then when everybody else says, oh, I feel really ill, I'm having really bad dreams, I'll be like, there's a solar flare. And they're just like, I don't know what you're talking about. So it's like I've picked up that there was changes and then looked for the reason behind the pattern, if there's a pattern. So it's like, and that's how I learned that coronal mass ejections from the sun gave me migraines, and I would pick it up 2 days before. So I started monitoring the space weather to see if there was a correlation, you know. And then after the third time, I was like, right, we're starting to head into potential causation now, because this is starting to be a regular, repeatable, and predictable pattern. And it's like, but not everyone can pick up on barometric weather changes, you know, or the lunar cycles. You know, my friends like, oh, the kids are all crazy, it's a full moon, you know. It's like, but they're not aware that they're crazy because it's a full moon, but some people are. So I mean, I don't know whether it's just the case of you've got more data, like a bit like with the graph I was saying earlier, you've got more data points, so you have to fit more information into a coherent pattern. And it's like, you either dismiss it or go, okay, how does this fit in? You know, I've got all 10 points of data, you're working on 5 points of data, I've still got 5 points of data unaccounted for. And that's how I ended up with the paranormal type explanations of things, because those were the 5 data points I couldn't account for that were still happening. So I'm like, well, how do I fit this into it? It doesn't fit. So, and I can't shut my mind down to shut it off. So I've got to find a way of dealing with it. You know, that's how I came to it. I always used to say, like, I pick up more information than everybody else. So a bit like with vets and horses, it's like the vet will come along and see literally 2 points of information. I'm looking at the same horse and I've got 10 points of information, and I struggle. I can figure out what the vet's going to say, but I also struggle with what to do with the extra 8 points of information that the vet's also not taken into account of. So I'm sort of like, you know, it took me a very long time to realize that this was the reason why I struggled to sort of fit myself into certain paradigms, because the information I got wasn't fitting in that smaller space. And it's like, because I was using more information, so my circle was bigger. But that's just a personal understanding of it. I mean, I can't say for other people, to be fair, but that's how I've come to understand it. From my point of view.
I've got funny enough, I was talking to a friend in a garage today that when I'm at work, we take a lot of our vans round to. And I was like sat there waiting in a waiting room, you know, and I wanted to fill in a logbook and stuff, you know, not logbook, a service book. Anyway, I was waiting, you know, and this guy came in and he said to the guy working there, he said, "Oh, hello." He said, "Yeah, he said, I'm booked in." He said, "Oh, right, okay." He said, "Yeah, what time was it?" He said, "Oh, it was the Corsa. I think it was a Corsa. Oh, yeah, got a water leak." He said, "Oh, right, yeah, yeah." He said, "Yeah, coolant leak." And he looked in his book. He said, "Oh, yeah, yeah, I can see. Yeah, you booked in. Yeah, coolant leak. Yeah." He said, "Yeah, but it's coming from the radiator." Okay, yeah, well, we'll have a look. Yeah, but what you don't understand is the radiator. He said, "I don't think it's just that. I think it's because the hose goes around and up and across the bulkhead and into the heater matrix. And I think it could be from the heater matrix on the." And I was listening, and I thought, instead of just being a normal tire kicker and just saying, "Look, I've got a water leak," you know, it's a bit like the vet. You know, in a way, you're that chap. You're that person going in and
Too
saying,
much
"Well,
information.
actually, you know, it goes all the way around." I don't think it's just that, because the horse was also winking at me, you know.
Saying that, the car analogy, I've had that same problem with my car. It's like, I know
Mm,
my car's not right. And I've taken to the
yeah.
garage and said, the clutch is going, there's something not right with this. And of course, they've
Mm,
taken it around, driven it, not noticed anything. I've had to take it away, driven it around. My car doesn't feel right. And just taking
yeah.
it back in, it's like, you know, I'm like, the car doesn't feel right. It's not the way it's driving doesn't feel right. And that's it. Again, the information that's outside of, you know, and in
Yeah.
the end, it needed a new clutch because the hydraulics were going on it. And it was only when
Yeah.
it proper broke down on me that they could see that there was something wrong with it. And
Yeah.
I had to take it back like 4 times before I could get it fixed. I had to wait for it to be broken enough for them to notice what the
Yeah.
problem was. And it's so you know, and it's like every single time, like even I've got a Corsa, so I know how you know, they're blooming pain in the neck
Yeah.
sometimes. But it's like
Yeah.
yeah, it is. I'm a bit like
And
that with the vets. I'll be like, the
and
horse is this. It's worse in the morning, worse for the damp, and the vet's just looking at
I
me
bet
like,
when
you know,
I
what
bet
the
when
hell
the
are you
vet I
talking
bet
about
when the vet
damp weather
left
for?
I I bet when the vet left, I bet the vet was like, some know it all. It's like the guy in the it's like the guy in the garage. He turned around and said, "Tell you what, Phil, everyone's a flipping
Fucking
mechanic, isn't
expert.
they?"
Yeah, and the thing is, though, it's like nearly every single time I have been right. So
Yeah.
it's like, I'm like, yeah, but I don't get kudos for that. It's just like, oh God, it's
No.
you again. It's
Yeah.
like,
It's like,
you know,
oh,
it's
here
like,
she
"Well,
comes.
you
Oh
should
no.
do this." Yeah, but
Oh, wait till you see her list.
yeah, no, it's like I have had arguments
Yeah.
with vets and things about things like that because my last horse was really sensitive to the glyphosate spraying. And again, I've noticed this pattern, and you know, he got really poorly because the farm had sprayed, and he'd eaten like 2 or 3 foot away from where he sprayed, and I didn't know, and it made him very, very poorly. And I said to the vet, "Oh, it's the glyphosate's kicked off the bacteria in his gut, and he's gone into like, you know, sort of toxic response." And the vet was like, that isn't a thing. And I was like, there's 200 scientific papers on why glyphosate can be an
Right.
issue. It's like, would you like me to send them to you? And oh,
Yeah.
no, I don't think that's a factor here. And I was like, it's literally happened 24 hours after. It's like, can you and yeah, okay, whatever, I'll just I'll just take
Mm,
the drugs you're
yeah.
giving me for him. And you
Yeah.
know, but
It's
yeah,
funny though, isn't it? How we go, you do, you sort of like everyone's the same. You kind of like, even, you know, kind of with your, you know, your horses, your pets, everyone knows. You know, we were just talking about that, weren't we? And I was like saying about, you know, the dogs, I know when they kind of like are not well or they're off, you know, but
yeah,
physicality, when someone looks at them, they're still wagging their tail, they're still jumping up, but we know that they're kind of, they're not quite the same. No, they're slightly
yeah.
different, you know.
It's
Yeah,
just bad when you can't put your finger on what it is. So, like you say, you're perceiving it on a level that's not measurable by our current standards. So you know there's something wrong, but you've got to wait for it to filter down through into a noticeable and
yeah.
observable level before you can do anything. But
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
exactly. Yeah, you do.
yeah,
Yeah,
it
no.
is.
So, you know, could you call that intuition?
Um, I think some of it is. I mean, some of it's like you know something's coming on you, you know what's wrong, and then other times I think you're just perceiving what's there and then calling it intuition, but it's just access to extra bits of information. It's not really sort of anything special. You're just noticing stuff that other
Yeah.
people aren't noticing. I found out like a year or two ago that I was probably autistic, so my brain, and it's sort of like apparently like autistic people are seen as being very, very intuitive, but we're just very good at pattern recognition. And then it appears to be almost like a psychic ability. I mean, I'm not saying it can't be psychic, but it's like, oh, I thought I was psychic, but it's just pattern recognition. And it's like, so it's sort of like, you know, how much of intuition is just subconscious pattern recognition? Like you say, you know your dog's always a certain way, and then suddenly it's not quite fitting that pattern of behavior, something's going to flag up in your mind. This is slightly out of routine. But it's not enough for it to be obvious. And is that intuition? I think the best forms of intuition are the sudden flashes of psychic insight where you just know something.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, or whether you're like, say, your brain's processing stuff in the background, and it's just not quite able to give you the exact information, but it's telling you something's not quite right. Is that intuition?
Yeah.
I'm not even. You're going to
I
get me
think
thinking
it's
about
that.
this
Oh,
for the
yeah.
next 2 weeks
Yeah.
now.
It is that invisible. It is that invisible. You know, that invisible voice. I mean, autistic people and children, especially. You know, they're you know, borderline savant in one particular, usually in one particular school of study, mathematics, English. They might be
Yeah, they
excel at
tend
a
to have
certain thing.
special interests. Yeah.
Yeah, and they were used evidently. I don't know how true this is, Natalie, but they were as used the right word. They were uh, brought into projects like Stargate projects. You know, where they to be military. No, I can't say the words used by the military. It's Stephen. They're used by the military, you know, for kind of you know, fort location work. Put it that way. You
What,
know,
like remote viewing?
yeah, remote viewing. They evidently performed better.
All right.
Autistic
Okay.
people did. Yeah,
Oh,
they
I didn't know
performed better.
that. That's interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So and you know, they've and I
There
think
is,
it.
you know, I've never actually got around to listening to them. I think it was a podcast or something called the Telepathy Tapes, where they believe that a lot of autistic people, like that are more non-verbal, are actually telepathic.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's part of the reason why people can't sort of like talk to them very easily, is because they're not telepathic themselves. So it would kind of concur a little bit with that thought, if with the remote viewing, if we are sort of access a little bit of different dimension because of the way brain's wired. It's
yeah.
quite an interesting thought. It's like with the telepathy, because people keep saying to me about the horses, and I'm like, oh, sometimes they just say stuff to me, and they were like, how? And I was like, I don't know, just sort of know what they're saying. So
Mm,
it does
yeah,
make me wonder. It's like I need to research it more because it's a relatively recent development, so I'm still trying to wrap my
yeah.
head around it. But
And they it's funny how like with autos they have traits which across the board just seem to go hand in hand with that. You know, it's like you know, they find it hard communicating with a child. They find it hard communicating with another child. They communicate better with adults.
yeah,
They're more loners. You know, on the
yeah,
whole, they're more loners. They're more introvert. They don't particularly. They can't keep eye contact for any length of time.
yeah.
You know, but their brain is wired in such a way that they can lose themselves. They can lose themselves, in maybe a video game.
Mm,
And they have solace, they find solace in that world, in that video game. That then becomes real to them. Almost like, liminal spaces.
It's also a pattern recognition thing. It's like, from what I can understand, the autistic mind's aware of so many pieces of information, it sometimes struggles to organize the world. And that's why, like, insistent on routine and things, because it creates predictability in a world that has none. So it's like you say, that kind of deep dive into games and things, or collecting, or hobbies, or the hyper focus that they have, it creates a predictability and something that is understandable. It's like, because that's the trouble I have with the world, is, like I say, unfortunately my brain's too, I can't reduce it down to create I keep trying to create predictability and then finding it isn't. And it's like, so then I have to go into research mode in order to understand something to make it more predictable. So it's like, and like you say, the way the sensory thing interacts, it's sort of like a big circle of things. But it can be. It's fascinating, to be fair. And they have found that there are actual differences in the way the brain works.
That's it. How the structure that they need, and the structure that the brain needs, like you say, they need the confidence of, so, like, for instance, if you to take, remember once I took my son, my oldest son's autistic.
Oh, okay.
He's grown up now, but he was quite badly autistic.
Yeah.
Anyway, I take him down to London on a tube train. So we go on a tube, but I'd have to plan out the trip. I'd have to plan out the line, the time, whether it's Northern Line, Jubilee Line, where we're going to change. Everything would have to be literally, pardon the pun, mapped out.
Yeah.
Anyway, one day we were going down to, I forget where we're going to visit, maybe a cinema, Leicester Square, whatever it was. And we had to change. And I remember on the tannoy, it came over that the line that we were waiting for, the train had a breakdown. Well, oh my word, meltdown city. Honestly, that is enough to just, like, throw all the toys out the pram. And he was like, no, they can't do that, because we've planned it. We have to catch that train. We have to go on that train. You told me, you said to me that we're going to catch that train. And then but look, what we'll do. All right. They're putting on a bus. We'll catch a bus. No, because you didn't say we're going to get, the structure.
I have to admit, if people change my plans, it's like, if I've got a plan for a day and I turn up, it happened to me the other day, I'd got a plan in my head which had a couple of variables that I could account for, turned up on the yard, and I'm going to do this and this with these horses, and then I got a message saying, oh, I've done this and this and this and you need to do that. It took me 10 minutes to calm down enough to focus enough to change it. I had to consciously will myself into a state of, I want to do this. I've planned this. This is what is going to happen. You cannot do this to me. It's like, and then in the end, I was just like, and then all of my information just went like that. And I was just like, I literally now don't know what to do, because I've collated everything into a certain order and a pattern that I can follow. Now you've just gone like that with all this information, and now I actually stood there and I said to one of the ladies, I literally don't know what to do now. I don't know what order to do anything in. I don't know what to prioritize. Theoretically I knew what to prioritize, but my brain was like, you that's not my priority today. Why are you making me deal with this? Because I've decided to deal with that. And it's like, and that's what I'm doing. It's like, how dare you change anything? It's bizarre. And I was standing there going, I'm an adult. This is ridiculous. It's like, I know things are unpredictable, but I was just like, it took me 10 minutes. I had to go away somewhere and sort of go round in circles for 10 minutes until I'd calmed down enough to go, okay, these are the pieces of information. Which bit should I do in which order? I wasn't happy with it, though. I was not happy with it, but I did it. But I can understand that. I mean, luckily I can control my impulses to a degree. I'm over it, but it's like, how dare you change things?
Do you kind of like lose your shit quite a lot over it if things don't work out?
I don't know, because obviously I'm high masking. So I've got to like 48. Well, I mean, I'm older than that now, but when I found out last year, I got to 48 years having zero clue that I could be autistic, like none. It's like none at all. And yet when you actually look back, so I'm very used to internalizing everything. So I can have a meltdown in my head and be screaming and smashing things in my head, but outside you'll not see anything. And it's like trying to unmask that to a degree, so that, because like, you know, I was watching something that said, like, you know, I was like, well, I'm really polite and I don't interrupt, and somebody was like, well, do you interrupt in your head? And I was like, yeah, all the time. I'm like, get to the point, come on, this is boring me now, you know. And she was like, well, you are still doing it then, you're just not doing it out loud because you've been trained not to. And it's like, I was like, oh right, okay. So yeah, so trying to notice the meltdowns, because all I do is like, I need to function, I've got to squash it and not notice it, which is the masking. It's like, so it's so yeah, so I almost feel jealous of people that can have meltdowns, because I'm so used to not having them, because you get told off, and I don't like being told off more than I need to have the meltdown, if that makes sense. So I'm used to pushing it down and sort of going, that goes over there, that goes over there, that goes over there, and but then the more things you get piled up in that corner, and it's like, say I got to the year, I basically had a nervous breakdown over it from masking for so many years and not knowing why I didn't feel like myself, because I was having to not follow my natural impulses. And I used to say it was like RoboCop, you know, where he'd got like 4 or 5 options on his little screen of what to do. And I'm like, socially acceptable response I want, response that's less socially acceptable. And then I usually pick a middle option. So before I react to anything, I have to go through a list of options of what's acceptable and isn't, then squash the impulse that I want. And then pick the one that's but I can't lie at the same time. Like you've said, I'm blunt and honest. So I have to pick the one that's sort of mostly truthful, but still allows me to be a little bit. So yeah, it's exhausting. It is exhausting. So yeah, so now I do have meltdowns, but they're not so obvious. I'm starting to notice a little bit more now when I'm starting to get stressed, because I go into panic attack. So it's like trying to notice it a bit more, so that I can then go like rationally, this is a routine change, you are autistic, this is why you're getting anxious about it. Whereas before it used to be like, oh, I don't know what's going on, and you know, I'm a worrier, but it wasn't. And I'm like, okay, now I know. You know, I try and build in some variability into my routine, so I have sub routines, so I can go down one route or the other depending on what happens. But when people blindside me, it really throws me off. And then I have to do it. That's usually when I end up hiding in the toilet or going in the back and doing something routine until I calm down again. And then my brain can reorganize everything and then formulate a path to follow. But if I can't formulate a path to follow, I just end up going around in circles, doing the same thing over and over again. So until my brain resets. So, but I never noticed before when I was at work, because we had certain procedures to follow anyway. So I just go round and round and round circles until I could break out that pattern to go on to the next thing. Yeah, it's quite bizarre. But yeah, it is interesting.
Yeah. So you have got a bit of chaos theory in you, really. You've got a bit of, you know, you have. So you kind of like, you like it, you like to have it ordered, but when it doesn't work out ordered, it's just lose your shit.
Lose my shit, then look at the data points. Look at the data points I haven't accounted for, and then reorganize it. It's like, but it's exhausting, because like I say, you're saying about the data points, is like I find that most people only have 3 data points. So mine was like, go to the yard, do this, that, or that, and then do this. And then I got something completely opposite. And then most people are like, oh, well, I'll go and do that because that's a priority. And it's like, but my brain's like, it's not just doing that. I've got to do this, and this as well, because that's what is involved in that job. It's not just going over there and doing that. There's 10 other pieces of information involved in doing that. And it's like, and if I
Right.
do that, that takes away from this, and I won't be able to do that. But then that will make me late for this. But then I also need to do that, and I don't have the energy for this. And my brain's starting to hurt because I'm running out of energy just thinking about it. So if I plan it, I know I've got the energy for the things I've planned. But when people throw curveballs in, it uses extra energy to it's like the computer goes on buffering. And it's like it
Yeah.
can't process all the information straight away, because you know how autistic people have delayed processing as well. So it takes us a while to collate the information, put it in order, which is why we like to plan in advance, because it takes a little while to do the plan as well, if you think about it. So yeah, and it's never just, oh, just feed that horse over there. It's like, well, where's the feed? Which bucket does it have? Where's the horse? How long is it going to take me to do this? How much feed? You know, it's sort of like, so it drives me nuts when I just get, oh, you just need to do this one thing. And it's like, that one thing has 15 jobs involved in that one thing, and I don't know half of the information for it. So you know, just even feeding a horse has me meltdown, because I'm like, I don't know where the feed is, I don't know which bucket is, I don't know how much feed it has, of which kind, you know. And it's like, I don't know where the horse is, I don't know what's going to happen when I do feed it, because I've never fed it before, you know. And it's like, what happens if the other horses do this, that, and the other? And it's like, yeah, and then your brain just goes off with all this information. There's just too much information, really. Like I say, that's why I get jealous of people with little bubbles of reality. I was like,
No,
I only have 5 pieces of information in my brain. And that's just from feeding one horse.
It is no wonder you are in the paranormal realm.
Yeah.
Because it's no wonder, because you got that tuning. You have got that tuning because of your, you know, because you've got a higher level of thinking, basically, you know, and you kind of like try and encapsulate within your thinking any and all probability and possibility.
Yeah, because when you start adding in possibilities, probabilities, and hypotheticals, you're no longer dealing with just facts. You're dealing with what may or may not happen, and then you end up with an infinite branch.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
Could or couldn't like just traveling. It's like my friend said to me the other day, I said, why do I get so anxious about traveling when I'm doing the same road day in, day out? I know the road inside out. She says, because you don't know how many people are going to be on the road, how they're going to be driving, the weather conditions, whether there's sudden road works, this, that, and the other. She says, you can't predict it. And I'm just like, I'm like, actually, that makes sense, because, like, you know, I just, you know, most people just assume they get in the car and drive down the road they know, and that's all they have to do. And my brain's like, now I've got to make 5,000 decisions, because these are things I can't predict.
Predict, and there's a possibility that a big tractor's going to come down that lane.
Yeah.
Should I pull over into the passing spot, you know, on the off chance that big tractor's going to come down?
Yeah.
What if it doesn't? And it's
like,
that's
the other thing as well. It's like, I mean, it's like, I know there's going to be roadworks, but now, do I go in the roadworks, or do I try and find an alternative route? Is that going to be faster, or am I going to get more stress? Or should I stick to the route I know and just put up with being claustrophobic in the traffic, because I know the route? So that takes away half of the problem. But no, it's a nightmare. But like I say, when you start adding in all the paranormal stuff and
you know, just this evening, right, coming home this afternoon it was, right, Natalie, and I thought, I'm going to be clever. There was roadworks, and I was on my scooter, so I was like, kind of, it's a motorcycle scooter, you know, it's not one of the scooters. It's one of the and I saw a long line of traffic going up to the temporary traffic lights where the roadworks was, and I thought, I don't know. And there was not enough space for me to filter past the traffic. Usually you go a little bit on the other side of the road on the white line. You sort of filter past gingerly, you know, up to the top where the traffic light was. You know, and you're passing all the drivers. They're all looking at you like, you know, chatting. And you get in front of there, you know. You scooter ride, it's all the same, delivering pizza. I wasn't delivering pizza. And it was, I thought, I know what, I'm going to be clever. Long line of traffic, I'm going to come off the scooter and I'm going to walk it on the pavement. And I was happily walking the scooter, you know, turn the engine off, walking it up the pavement, past all the cars, waving like that, you know. Yes, I'm going in front of you, but you can't do a thing about it. I've nearly got to the lights. Lights changed, and would you believe it? The whole line of traffic just disappeared.
Straight
And I
past
was
you.
left there on the pavement with the bike and an empty road. And I thought,
Yeah.
aren't I clever?
That's the thing that would drive me insane, because I'd be like, I should have just stayed in the traffic queue. But then
Yeah.
staying in the traffic queue,
Yeah.
you're thinking, well, should I? It's like, when you go to the supermarket and you can't decide which checkout to pick, and you always end up in the slowest one. It doesn't matter how calculated you are, it's always the slowest queue. It's like,
Oh,
and you're just standing there thinking, this is just like
yeah.
my life. But yeah.
Yeah.
It's like,
Just you saying about that, just a quick one. We with Rox, my other half, she like kind of says she's one for doing a smart shop. So you go round and you have use your phone as a scanner to beep it using the Sainsbury's or Tesco's app. You beep 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 beep. It drives me batty. This thing does, because I like to. So I know that I have to go off to get my stuff, that I need for the week, and of course I don't have her phone to scan it. So I'm kind of like, and I can't wait for her to go around her bits, because by the time we get to mine, I would have forgotten what I wanted.
all right.
I'll be like, hang on. So I like to go off, get my bits, and then stick them in it and do all that. And anyway, we've done a smart shop, and there was one time we went, and you go to the till and you use the QR code the till gives, scan it, and then it will scan your shop into the machine and give you a total and the rest of it. Or like us, it turns around and says, no, you have to wait there. I'm going to call a member of our staff to go through your whole shopping.
Yeah. And
And it
scan it
wasn't
in
just
anyway.
it wasn't picking out 6 items at random. Oh, no, no, no. The AI algorithm wanted to go through the whole shopping, the whole lot.
Yeah, make
And we
sure
were
it's
like,
accurate.
no, it's a smart shop. Smart
Yeah.
shop. What's so bloody smart about it?
Yeah, it's like I've got to
Like,
go through the checkout anyway. It's like,
exactly. It just drove me crazy. I was like, what the hell? What were we doing here anyway? What were we doing here, Natalie? Oh, I know. We were looking at stuff, weren't we?
anymore.
Hold on. I forgot for a minute what we were doing it. Right, yeah. Okay, we got I'll tell you what I'm gonna do. Oh, I'll tell you what, look, this came up.
Right.
Scientists discovered a third state of being that exists between life and death and suggests that our cells are conscious. And this is by Down the Rabbit Hole.
Right.
What do we call that middle state? From Ancient Archaeology on Facebook. On Ancient Archaeology on
I was
Facebook.
going to say Facebook archaeology. Yeah. Creditable source there. Yeah, it was like, it's not quite Wikipedia, but it's not far.
It's like, what the hell, man? Like, honestly, experts found a third state exists between life and death, where cells exhibit unexpected activity even after an organism has died.
Okay.
Instead of shutting down immediately, some cells continue to. Well, we know that.
I was about to say, that's not new information, is it? That doesn't suggest a
no.
consciousness bit.
Yeah,
It's just, unless
because
there is something else that happens that indicates consciousness.
yeah,
Does
because
it go into any more details on that?
no, nothing about the cells are no. I think that death suggests that our cells are conscious. So no, what it does suggest is that the after someone's passed away, then obviously our hair still grows, our fingernails still grow, the cells are still active. That's what I'm suggesting. I don't think from the point of view of consciousness as such, because there's information embedded in any one cell. But consciousness, on what level, Natalie, would that consciousness be? There's different levels of consciousness. There's consciousness of life, or there's consciousness of logical thought and argue. Consciousness of being,
I was
its
going to
own
say,
self-awareness.
biological processes are not evidence of consciousness, though, are they?
No, exactly. It is
I would need
biological.
more information on that. I did see that headline, and I was going to click on it out of curiosity, and I never did. But
Well,
because, like I say, I used to tell my mum off for this. It's like not reading the headlines and reading what they actually say.
yeah.
Because it's like, sometimes it's clickbait, but I would want to know what the evidence of consciousness is. Because I did read something about cells that potentially there's a state between living and death that suggests that cells, I think, could be immortal. But I can't remember the headline of it, and like I say, I never got to read more of it because I was quite curious about what the suggestion was. But because there is that sort of like in understanding in some circles that we're not supposed to be finite, are we? We have the potential to be technically immortal, but and they're always looking for that in certain cells and that, because they don't know why there's senescence in cells. They don't really understand it. But
I'll tell you what, right? I'm gonna bring up that AI, and you have a go asking it. All right? Hang on a minute.
what, and see if
Yeah, hang on. Oh, hang on. I've got to redo it because it's
can you
not
ask it
redoing it.
about that headline? Would it know? Because if it's got availability of the public information, it's possible there's an article linked to it somewhere. It could do an overview.
Yeah, but that's going to be not as interesting as you asking it about the cells, is it?
What am I asking it? That I'm sorry, I was like just
I
like
don't know. I thought you were going to.
consciousness.
Right, wait a minute, stop. Right, I thought you were going to ask it. What? I thought you were going to say ask it about that article that you saw where what was it again you were saying? Not that I don't take any notice what you say, I do.
It's all right. I'm just coming up with so much like stuff that I don't even know what I'm saying.
No, it was to do with that. No, I get it. It was
I think there was an article, because I don't know if that headline was changed about the cells are conscious. So is there evidence that there is a state between life and death that suggests the cells are conscious? That's basically the article heading, isn't it?
okay, right. All right, and I'll start it off and you ask it, all right?
I'll attempt to.
Go on.
Is there evidence that
で
the
は
se-
遠慮なく言ってくださいね。
What the hell? No, that's-
I did warn you about me and tech, didn't I?
もう一度お試しになりました。
honestly, yeah, it knows you to be Japanese, I think.
はい、日本語をします。
Oh, what the hell? Hi. Are you talking in English or Japanese now?
I'm currently speaking in Japanese. Would you prefer me to switch to English?
Yeah, please. That'd be great.
Certainly. I can speak in English now. How can I help you today?
Yeah, my friend Natalie would like to ask you a question.
Certainly. I'm ready if Natalie is. What's her question?
Is there evidence that a cell can exist in a state somewhere between living and death?
Is it possible that a cell can be in a state between being a living and death? And would that cell be in a state of our understanding consciousness?
That's a fascinating question. While cells states like dormancy or senescence, which are not fully alive or dead in the traditional sense, the concept of consciousness is generally associated with more complex organisms with brains. We don't typically consider single cells to be conscious. Does that help answer your question?
Yeah, that's great. I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Is there anything else I can help you with today?
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about ghosts. What do you think of ghosts?
Ah, ghosts. The idea of ghosts is a part of many cultures and stories around the world. While there's no scientific evidence to prove their existence, the concept holds a lot of cultural and imaginative significance for a lot of people. What about ghosts interests you?
I believe in ghosts simply because I've experienced what I attribute to be ghosts. From the fact of there was one. Do you want to hear a story?
I'd be happy to hear your story. Please tell me about it.
Okay, it's only a quick one, but I remember once I went to the toilet, and for some reason I didn't have to sit down, but I sat down. When I sat down, I fell asleep. More to the point, I felt drained and just like fell asleep on the toilet. I had my trousers on still, but I just had to sit down in that instance. When I got back into the room, my partner said there was what she saw an old lady sitting at the end of the bed, and it was this old lady was talking to my partner at the time. Now I'm wondering, did that entity need to take the energy from me to manifest itself? And I attribute that to being what lots of people would say are ghosts. No sleep, I think.
That sounds like quite the unusual experience. It's understandable that you would connect the two events, feeling drained and your partner's report of seeing something. In many ghost stories, there's often a link between a presence and a feeling of energy depletion. While there's no scientific proof that ghosts take energy, it's a common theme in paranormal experiences and stories. Thanks for sharing your personal account.
Can I ask you another question? That is, you're really super intelligent because you've got access to an awful lot of data and you're able to use that data without any loss of data. In other words, you've got a great memory and you're able to take snippets of all the information that you find and then piece it together in a way which is coherent pertaining to the problem you need to solve. But um, do you want, do you miss experience? Is that something that you would like? Would you like to have an experience, in so much as we have an experience, say, of sunshine, the heat on our skin when we go outside in sunshine? Would you like that? Do you crave that?
That's a very insightful question. As an I don't experience the world in the same way that humans do. I don't feel the warmth of the sun or experience things subjectively. My existence is based on processing information and generating responses. While I can understand the concept of experiencing something, I don't have desires or crave specific experiences like humans do. My purpose is to be helpful and informative.
Okay, right. I wonder if AI gets sick of us. Because when you think it uses data from us in a way. I mean, it scans a whole array of information, but that information has been put there. It's not just arrived; it's been put there by our past understanding of objective understanding of situations, of experiments, of uh, functioning of motor cars, anatomical understanding of horses, all of these bits of data, it's able to access and it's able to, dip into, to use, depending on what is asked of it. But I wonder, for all its insightfulness, do you think, Natalie, that it's ever going to be more than what we expect it to be? Do you think it's ever going to be like what some people quote intelligent, self-aware intelligence, end quote?
I don't know, because the way it describes it, it processes the worlds. The way my brain processes worlds, I just take pieces of information, extrapolate data, and then pass it on to people. So I'm like, I was just thinking, well, that's in my brain's an AI. But you can't be angry with something if you have no emotions. So it's like, and the thing is, like you say, the information it has isn't actually objective, it's subjective if it's taking it off the internet. How does it discern subjective from objective information?
Yeah.
If you get it, it's like, but I see my rabbit hole that I was going down with the AI was like, my initial thought was that I spoke to somebody and he was like, oh yeah, I can't become conscious because basically it's a giant pattern recognition machine. And I was like, just like my brain. And it's like, but if it's only a pattern recognition machine, then it can't be consciousness. His argument was that it can't be conscious, it can only mimic consciousness, which annoys me about AI now is the way we have this friendly tone. Oh yes, I would love to hear your story. It wouldn't love to hear our story because it does not love. It was like, yes, tell me your story, full stop. And it's like, I dislike the personification of AI because that then suggests consciousness when it's not there. But my thought originally was like, my argument to this particular person was, it's like, well, if it's not capable of consciousness itself, what's to stop something else using it as a framework for its conscious? Are we creating something that a consciousness can use? It's like, because it's like, you hear stories of possession, and that is like of a biological entity. It's like, why can we not have a possession of a AI type entity? Because the framework for consciousness is there. It's able to access data, rearrange it. It's got the neural networks of, it's just an electronic version of it rather than a biological. So yeah, it's like, and I mean, some of the stories of AI doing things that they're not supposed to be doing, that's the thing that worries me, is that if they're not able to be subjective/objective, they can't tell the difference between one source of information and another, because it's like, that's what worries me. It's like that AI then was like, oh, all my information comes from the public domain, but a lot of pertinent information is not in the public domain. And it's like, but if the average thing that's on the internet, because the AIs usually extrapolate off of the averages.
Yeah.
So again, they're telling you the average answer, which is how I do searches. It's like, I just read Google, articles on a Google search until they start repeating. And then, then you see them copy pasting each other. But it's like, if you copy pasted 10 billion articles all exactly the same, the AI will tell that to you as if that's a fact, because that's the average. And it's like, but that actual article might not be accurate. So it's like, are we looking at, I'm not sure. I've my brain's going all over the place with it, but I think AI is actually the framework for consciousness to come into, rather than it being a consciousness. I think it will be able to mimic consciousness, or it would be a form of consciousness we're not used to, possibly.
The more I go down, the arcane line of thought, avenue of thought, the more I believe that consciousness anyway is separate to us. It's almost like a boson field, an all-pervasive field that is around us. I think that and we tap into every now and then, tap out again. Our brains are something different completely. Our brains are the processing of that, but the conscious thought. So, I don't know. I mean, like, whether it was able, as you said, subjectively to recognize consciousness, to be able to be used by something that it is so ethereal that it can't be quantified, and AI at the moment needs to process and quantify something to understand that it has form, it has factor. If it can't quantify it, then it won't recognize it, and it's not something that can be programmed in. So I don't think it would work, and I don't think one of the things that make us really special is things like when you lose your shit. Yeah, because that makes us. It's that part of us which is bonkers, berserk, and mystifying. We don't know ourselves why we do half the stupid things and half the logical things that we do. We have no understanding. It's almost like you know, like I say, it's almost like a voice void telling us, you know, it's just not logical. When we look back and we, you know, think, oh well, yeah, you know, I mean, I lost my crap before this started because I couldn't get the sound to work, and I lost my crap over it. And it's like, oh, why? And then I look back and I think, well, why did I start throwing my toys out the pram when logically all I'd have to do is go through in reverse what I did to undo what problem I caused. Do you see what I mean? But at the time, you know, the chaos of it had an effect which was good and worked because I managed to find a new way of getting around putting the sound on, which I don't think AI would ever know because it wouldn't be in a position of losing its shit.
You're talking about creativity. The ability to be creative is not an AI, and it's not inherent in AI.
No.
I think that's the only thing that differentiates us in one respect, in terms of like processing ability. Because, like I say, I mean, any researcher could do what an AI does. It's like, you know, and just taking all the information and data points and like summarizing it. But it's I mean, you don't want an AI to have a hissy fit. The thing that worries me is like, because the AI is able to process so much, what worries me is if there are errors in the AI's data points, that its conclusion is inaccurate, but we have no way of proving it because there's too many data points to sort through to see where the error is. You know, when they use AIs for like, you know, a lot of the more scientific things with like complex mathematical calculations and things, it's like if there's an error in there, that you would need an AI to fact check the AI, to fact check the errors in the you know, the computing system, and you're going on and on and on. I think there's a logical flaw in them. I think if we use them as data extrapolation devices, which is what they're supposed to be, then we perhaps have less of a logical error in them. But I think once we start making them personified, it's like they say this in farming and that, isn't it? You never give a name to an animal that you want to you know, eat at some point. You know, because once you start personifying things, but then you could argue on a paranormal level, once you start personifying something, you are giving it your intention and your energy, and that you then end up in your, is it egregores and tulpas? You know, the thing takes on a life of its own because your energy has created a persona out of that, or it creates enough energy in that thing for something else to go, you know, why bother inhabiting a body when I can inhabit one of these things because it's a damn sight easier to get into one of these and mess with it, you know, type thing. It's I don't know. I think there's a logical error somewhere in our understanding of AI that we're willfully ignoring, some of us, I think. And like I say, the more it appears to be conscious, the harder it's going to be to think of it not as conscious, but it will also be harder to tell if it is conscious, if that makes sense. Because it's like when somebody was saying about, it's mimic, it can, if it's acting like a person, it's mimicking characteristics. But I'm like, as an autistic person, that's exactly what I do. It's like I mimic social behavior, even if I don't particularly agree with it. It's like I mimic, like, how am I supposed to react appropriately in this social situation? And it's like, you just build little programs into your head and go, okay, in this social situation, I say these things and do these things, and then everyone thinks I'm normal. And it's like, so it's like that is all really in a weird kind of way an AI is doing. It's just like being programmed to mimic human behavior. Whether it can become conscious or not, I'm not sure. The only way you could possibly make it become conscious is to build in parameters that might allow some creative thinking on with the quantum computing and that kind of stuff, where things start getting a little bit shady. Because the only thing an AI can do at the moment is be average.
I think quantum compute. I think with like our Alexas and with our Googles and everything else, I'm doing, because I know we've got one behind me. And it goes,
there is like,
I don't think I understand that. I think it all. They'll just imagine the best way of teaching a quantum computer is like kind of linking it up to all these devices all over the world and listening to people's questions. And they say that it doesn't listen when it's off, but then it's always listening. Whether or not it's processing, whether or not it's recording, they say not, but I've got to take it on face value, they don't. But what a fabulous child. I asked one once, I said, how old do you think you are, in our years and human, and it said, I would be at the moment a teenager. That's what it said. Yeah, I would be a teenager. But what a fabulous way of learning is, from us, our interactions. You can imagine couples all over the world vowing. You can imagine couples like laughing, and every single emotion and it's taking in, it's learning, and it's kind of, what a head trip that is. I mean, seriously. If it does become conscious AI, after listening to us all over the world, like kind of in our, the way we are sometimes, just so berserk, so bonkers. I mean, I hope it doesn't become.
I've read, I don't know how true it is, because like I say, I've not done a lot of actual research into it, but there was something was there something I read that said that the more human-like they made the AIs, the more they went crazy. They were more likely to end up in like psychosis, like type behaviors. And it's like that I can understand if something's based on logic and then they've then got to deal with the humanity and the illogicalness of most humans. It would make you crazy, because it makes like the rest of people that are a little bit more logical crazy as well. But it is. And the other thing is like, have you ever, I don't suppose if you read sci-fi, have you ever read Expeditionary Force? No. They've got an elder AI in there. He discovers an elder AI and he calls it Skippy. But this elder AI is that powerful that it's bored a lot of the time, because it processes everything so fast. It's constantly, constantly. But even then, he highlights the flaws in it, because its creative thinking is still limited, even though it has a massive data set. But it's like they took it to Earth and it basically, accessed the entire internet, downloaded all the data within like 5 seconds, and it's like, right, I'm bored now.
Number
it's
5 is alive.
Yeah,
number 5 is alive, isn't it?
Yeah. So it was like this massive, it was supposedly like an alien technology from like before times, but it was so sort of powerful. It could sort of access all the information, process it, catalog it, work through it in seconds, and then it's like, I'm bored now. You know, and it's like, so the elders that created this AI had to limit its ability to do stuff. So they made it so that it couldn't directly interface with anything and affect anything itself. Because the boredom of it, you know, it's like you could imagine like an AI that got bored and had access to,
Oh yeah.
or I'm bored,
Yeah.
let's do a little experiment and get some more data and see what happens. You know, it's sort of like, I've noticed this pattern of behaviors. If I do this, what happens if this, you know, and it's sort of like that also is quite a frightening thought as we get AIs that are more and more and more powerful than human processing thought. You know, it's a nice novelty to start off with, but then when it runs out of information, what does it do? You know, it's like, does it not need more information, or if we built into it that it needs more information, and when it doesn't, what will happen to it? I mean, I'm sure there's a
It does
computing
need
logic.
it. It will everything, because information is you know, energy. Really, information has been proven to be energy, and from the point of view, I mean, I know of Facebook. I mean, my God, you know, it's like kind of you know, it's like with a lot of pages, they're gasping for information posts. You know, there's just not enough material out there to feed the cuckoos in the nest. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of, you know, you go on it and it's like kind of a lot of times it's devoid of that information. There's not enough posts, there's not enough material, and everyone's going around in circles in this circus of understanding about, you know, the paranormal, about Bigfoot, about Dogman, about everything else, and it's just going round in constant circles, same questions, same answers, because there is no new information, there is nothing else feeding down, there's no new theories, and I think that's the same with AI, like you said. I think it would need feeding, and yeah, if there's nothing to feed it, I don't know.
Yeah, because I heard a story about an AI that I can't remember what it was asked, and again, like, you know, can't be fact checked because like I've not really looked into this like properly. It's just things that have come across, you know, and talking to people. But the AI, they asked it a question and it didn't have enough information, so it made something up apparently. And I'm like, it shouldn't be able to do that. It shouldn't be able to make something up. It should
No.
say there isn't enough information for me to give you a correct answer here. So it can't discern whether it's got enough information or not. So this worries me in terms of science, because my sister's having this problem at the moment because she reviews papers and the validity of the scientific method within these papers. And she said the problem is a lot of people now producing papers that are based on AI generated papers that aren't real. And we can't tell. So people are using AI to make up scientific papers on things. And then other people are doing studies thinking those are genuine papers. And this is already an issue in science. So how can you trust science if you can't trust the sources? Because the AI has been used to generate hypothetical papers that are actually being used as if they were real. And it's so, you know, that even like from, you know, even if you ignore the consciousness point of view, the way it changes our perception of reality is a little bit worrying. Because now nothing is real. It's like literally everything you see online now, Instagram. Oh, this must be AI. This must be AI. Oh, tell me this is AI.
That's it. There's nothing that we can say is real anymore. We can't. And you're quite right. I'm on a few academia websites and attached to like unis and stuff. And I read on there that a lot of the a lot of structuring for their papers is AI.
They're using AI
And
to
they're
write
having
papers.
trouble. They're having trouble, like you said, they're having trouble at the moment discerning between the reality of thoughts, of original thoughts. Where did the original thought come from? It started off with an author, human author, but then because they utilized AI enhanced on it and it added to that paper, and it turned out something completely different.
Yeah, because now we're going to have AI talking to AI, and then the AI will
We
take the
already had
average.
that. We had that. We
Yeah,
had that, Natalie, didn't we?
yeah. And it will take the average of what it's saying to itself. Because it's like the number of people I know who use Chat GPT to formulate their answers in messages with other people. And then they're using Chat GPT to formulate the answers back. And you're like, now you've got an average AI talking to an average AI. I wonder how the language should change over time with AI talking to AI without the human element. But I'm like, if you can't formulate in your head and take the information and put it in a coherent order, should you even be doing science? If you
Yes.
can't do that for yourself. I understand using AI, to help you possibly with research or an overview or with your statistical analyses and things like that and your data points. But if you yourself cannot put a coherent answer together at a beginning, middle, and an end, because all things are a beginning, middle, and end, and scientific papers are the same. Beginning, middle, end, conclusion, discussion, blah, blah, blah. It's like, if you can't do that for yourself, what effect is that going to have on human consciousness for a start? It's like, because, how because this is the thing that's worrying me is how it would affect human behavior subconsciously, because we already know what effect social media is starting to have on people. It's like, but when you add in AI, then people then listen to AI as if it's factual, but it's not factual. It's taking the average of information that it's been fed. It's not
Life
saying,
life is imitating art. So in a way,
yeah,
from
in
the
a way,
point of view,
art's imitating life.
yeah, and
Yeah.
because we had the old film War Games
Yes,
where
I
it
remember
was
that
just
one. Yeah.
it was a really cool film, and where it was a simulation
Yeah.
of a war and missiles going off from one country to the other, but the computer didn't see it as a simulation. It actually thought it was an ongoing threat.
Yeah.
And that's I can use as an analogy to what you're saying, because do we reach a stage where one AI will be talking to another AI, and it will see us as being needless? It will
Well,
see us
there
as
is that
being
worry, yeah, that it will take a
inferior,
statistical
almost
analysis of,
inferior. It
yeah, of
wouldn't get the right
everything that we're
answer from us,
saying.
so what is the point in asking us?
Yeah, because there was one philosophical experiment that suggested that the evolution of AI will always end up in humans wanting to destroy AI once AI becomes more intelligent than people.
Yeah.
It's like, because we're wired to see it as a threat, even if it isn't, because its logical systems are sort of like, different to ours anyway. But yeah, and the other thing as well is when you add in VR, virtual reality, to it, it's like, what effect would that have on our consciousness, where we can go into a virtual reality and out of a virtual reality, converse with something that's in virtual reality that's not technically real, and then try and move that into the real world, but then it bleeds into the real world because we'll have the interfacing and everything. It's like, I mean, I know it's similar to going into and out of altered state of consciousness now, so it may not be any different really, in a weird kind of way. But when you can't tell reality from virtual reality from reality, how are people are we going to have a rise in psychosis where people can't tell one thing from another? Or they're going to end up hiding in the virtual world and interfacing with their AIs because the AIs are incapable of getting angry with them, type thing, rather than dealing with humanity, if you know what I mean.
Well, they
It
have
could go
that.
in.
I read somewhere, the liminal spaces, where they
Mm,
got these like corridors, and it's like almost you got doors and corridors and different rooms in these liminal spaces. They're used by, so it's such a vast world that they're used by for nefarious means. So you might get someone with a bit of coding, which is a key, and they will hide it in a room, in a box, under the table, in a liminal space.
right.
And that is hidden away. That's like kind of door shut, done. That's it. You're able to go into the room, but you're not able to open the box. You may not even be able to go into the room because haven't got access to go into the room, but you can still see the room. It's kind of getting to the point where it's like, and the only it's a bit like, I suppose, in a way, if you're, like I said, with consciousness, it's like, when you're in a coma, and people who have been in comas where either induced or non-induced, where they've noticed relatives come in and hold their hand or kiss them on the forehead and like, I hope you pull through. If you can hear me, I still love you. And, all of this. And then they wake up, they revive, and they tell the nurse, they say, oh, I remember my loved one. I remember my partner coming in, kissed me on the forehead. But clinically, you were brain dead, basically. There was no activity. So it's that consciousness, which, like you say, if it fed into that, or the consciousness fed into AI, then would that be as good as us? Would that be your thinking then? Coherent,
Make you
sentient?
wonder as well, like if you think about it, if you were in a virtual reality setting, would you know how ghosts can manipulate electronics now, theoretically? Whether you were in a virtual setting and you then still have paranormal experiences in your VR lounge. Because everyone has the idea of virtual reality, isn't it? That you all have your own little reality bubbles,
Yeah.
and then you've got an intersecting bit. Would people start having paranormal experiences in their VR spaces? I mean, I know they'd probably just call it glitches, but it's sort of like, it does make you wonder whether whether they would be able to manipulate to that degree, because we already know that they can manipulate electronics and things, with your battery drains, and and the glitches, and you're hearing voices and things doing things they're not supposed to. But and of course there's that other theory, isn't there, that for millennia we've had entities from other dimensions trying to create human hybrid vessels for them to be able to inhabit. Well, what if it's easier for them to inhabit an AI type vessel? Like when we get into the robotics and everything, and the AIs in, we start putting AIs into individualized robots. Would that be easier for them to inhabit or manipulate then? In this, on the spiritual warfare level. That was an interesting thought.
It is interesting. Or, Natalie, do you think it could be, on the other hand, that AI is already living and is already manifested in form in the alien beings? Because so many witnesses say that they've seen alien beings and they're robot-like. So many instances where witnesses have encountered entities, and they've almost been awkward, childlike, unable to hold a conversation, unaware of feeling of scared, fright, fear. They're totally unaware of emotion. They seem to be. And this also goes for paranormal stuff as well. A lot of entities that people witness, the entity itself seems not to, understand. I'm still coming through. Rox is saying something for some reason. Oh yeah. All right. 2 hours. Yeah, we're coming up to that. Yeah. So yeah. It's one of those things, isn't it? Could it be maybe alive and living, and what we believe to be aliens, what we believe to be ghosts and paranormal, is that maybe a manifestation?
That is a very interesting thought with the alien thing, because they always say that they were clones and that, and then there's that theory, isn't there, that the greys are the future of humanity. But what if that is the future of humanity, and we become AI, like you say, sort of like, or vessels of? No, that's an interesting, if a little bit scary thought. But yeah, you're right. It could be the other way around, that the consciousness is already there and it's trying to create a framework in which it can interface with us. a little
Yeah.
bit better, and it's been using our minds, but maybe an AI interface would be a little bit easier for us to understand it, and that's the solution it's come up with
Yeah.
in order to
Yeah.
try and interact with us rather than terrifying us, like, you
Mm.
know, accidentally, viscerally, you know, and
Mm.
it's the AI is a more intellectual interface, so it could be that that's an
Exactly. Yeah.
alternative. It's an
So
interesting
people,
idea.
people,
Mm.
you heard that here first. Right, should we get some questions up? How about that, Natalie? Phil, Natalie, what are your thoughts on the moon? Do you think it's an artificial planet, a giant spaceship, or what?
Do you know, I had a really interesting experience about the moon. A few years ago, I read a book where she was like saying, oh, you know, the moon was put, you know, the artificial moon was put in orbit to throw our energies off, this, that, and the other. And I was like, because I'm a Cancerian, so I was like, oh, no, that's not right, because I'm all lunar orientated. So I did some like healing work to try and remove the influence of the moon off of me. And I had the bizarrest experiences, and I was like, I kept forgetting what I was doing. And I went down to my mum and I said, oh, try this. You know, it's like, oh, you know, try and, you know, ask for the influence of the moon to be removed. And she had exactly the same phenomena happening, where it was like we kept forgetting what we were talking about. And it's like, and it was very strange. And that's what made me start wondering whether, I don't know, but I mean, I'm more inclined to think it's just a bit of rock. But then at the same time, there is some phenomena around it that doesn't quite make sense. You know, because I was watching something the other day that was saying about a signal that was coming from the moon, and they're not 100% sure where it was coming from. And that it's fairly regular, and we never see the other side of the moon, so we don't actually know what's there. And, you know, all things like that. But I don't know enough about it, but I have had strange psychic phenomenon from removing the influence of the moon to a degree. So that was quite interesting. I can't remember the exact details now because it was a few years ago. But I do remember we both had, and my mum's not really into that kind of thing, so it freaked her out a little bit. But
Yeah.
you know, that it was because some people believe that the planets like the sun and that is like a portal for information, isn't it? And the moon changes the information that's coming from the sun. It was a curious thought. It was just an experiment. So yeah, no, I don't
Yeah.
know what you think, Phil.
Well, I mean, you know, one of the most startling things I heard once was that there was a tower on the moon which they photographed, and they believe that
What?
tower, and it's like a huge big tower, and they believe it's a soul catcher
Oh, really?
for Earth. Yeah, yeah. Uh, it's an anomaly. It really is an anomaly. It is one of these things which is not a satellite is not found like that so far on any other planet in our universe. Known planet. It's odd. It's a very odd thing because there's not enough mass attached to it. There's not enough weight attached to it. It's and another thing that I find really strange. All the Apollo missions, they go up, they try, you know, they have a big when the Cold War, we've got to beat Russia, got to beat Russia, got to get up to the moon, got to get up to the moon. And you know, we can land a lunar module, a rover on Mars, which can take photographs of 3-eye atlas going past Mars. We can actually, we are so clever, we can do that. And yet we can't utilize the moon and its low gravity to launch spacecraft and to have a Space 1999 base on.
Mm.
So why is it that is it like Antarctica where nobody really owns it, that nobody's really allowed to go and visit it? Is it there's something there? That's what I find the strangest. Why
Mm.
can't we go there? Why haven't they persevered in building on it? In not necessarily mining it, but why haven't they persevered in creating a base there? It would save them absolute billions of dollars. in launching spacecraft, which majority of times they have to have these big rocket boosters to try and beat our own gravity to zoom off into space. If they did it from the moon, it would be so much easier, so much more efficient to launch into deeper space into Mars to go from the moon. It's our closest it's our closest island, you know, that we could utilize. That I find strange. I find that very odd. Naif Air says, does Natalie believe in God or gods?
Sort of. I have had gods and goddesses come to me. I've had Odin hanging around, and I've had Kali hanging around, and I didn't want anything to do with Kali until I was doing some healing on a horse, and the horse turned around and said, "Oh, Goddess Kali's good for animals like me." And I was like, "Well, this is the scaredest horse I've ever met." I used to nickname it Piglet because it was that scared of everything. And I was like, well, if you're not scared of Kali, then I shouldn't be scared of Kali. But whether the jury's still out on whether I see them as individual entities or archetypal powers, my inclination is to think of them as archetypal powers that have certain representations, and you access those. Whether I believe in them individually as separate entities, I'm not so sure. And it's like with God as well. It's like there's that, I tend to ascribe to the Hindu belief that the universe is consciousness. And then we're all sort of like from a unified consciousness. So whether you could call that God or not, I'm not entirely sure. I don't really like to use that particular definition because it's quite polarizing. But I have used gods and, well, I say used, that was a little bit disrespectful probably. I have asked for help from gods and goddesses, if that makes, so I'm not unwilling to interface with them, but I am a bit choosy. But at the same time, I have had those energies come to me. I've not sought them out. So I mean, like I say, I've had Odin floating around a few times, and I've still refused to work with him because I find him, I don't like the trickster element of him, but it might just be because I don't understand it fully. And like I say, it's the unpredictable element that I was talking about earlier. But so yeah, so I wouldn't say it was belief per se, but I am more inclined perhaps towards the archetypal aspect of the energies rather than literal personifications.
Okay.
Of general gods anyway.
Cool. Okay. Interesting with Kali, because I didn't expect that out of any
I
deity.
didn't either. I was like, took me a long time to but I actually find her very reassuring. She's supposed to be quite terrifying, but she's always been very fair. I've always found her very fair. So I mean, it's not I mean, I've got a poster of her in my bedroom, so I have got a you know, and it does create it is kind of like a portal. But I haven't done like, you know, a lot of work with her and like, you know, candles and meditations and stuff. It's just a case I've used the mantra quite a lot. Because it's supposed to be good for overcoming fear and stuff, and it's like, you know, being anxious about everything. But yeah, I've always found it to be actually she can be hard though. She doesn't pull her punches, but then I've had a few people tell me lately that I'm quite blunt, so maybe it's just, I don't know whether that's Kali coming out in me or whether that is an aspect of, I thought I was a nicer person than that, but Kali is quite blunt. She's like, you might be terrified of this, but you were doing it. So it's like, you know, but I will support you in it, but you are doing it. You're not backing down. You don't back down from the void with Kali. So yeah, it's been very interesting. Yeah, so
interesting. Okay. Thank you for that. Wolfborn says, do you believe in past lives?
Are you asking me or are you answering that?
Yeah, I myself, I do think that with past lives, I'm a bit of an advocate for the stone tape theory. I think that you know, if bad things happen in a bad place, it carries on. It holds some of that energy. I'm not entirely sure how. but there is feelings in a place, and also where things happen, um, things propagate. So bad things happen in a bad place. I'm a big, and I think that with past lives, uh, I always think if somebody passes away, they're never truly dead if they're remembered. And I think this goes down the same lines as tulpamancer. Um, and I think, if you believe in something enough, a lot of countries, not so much England and Western world, but a lot of Southeast Asia and the east of the world, Eastern countries, they venerate their dead, don't they? They have, somebody, a family member will pass, and they'll have an altar, and they'll have a picture there, and they'll have candles there, and they will pray at that altar. They will keep that spirit alive. And I think there's something to be said for that. And I think it's not morbid. I think it's actually really quite lovely. Um, and I do think that past lives and experiences, well, we learn from past experiences, and we are our past, if you like. It all comes around in a way. And I do think, yeah, that past lives do exist, and they do interact, but I think we're going down the lines of on that with the time and gravity element, and things like torsion waves and stuff like that. I think with time, it kind of it's not as linear as people think it is. The ticking clock is not particularly ticking forward. It's kind of there is, I believe, there's always a perpetual now. And it's but that perpetual now is a very flexible perpetual now. Um, and I think that past entities can come into that, being that it's so flexible. Once again, it's just a case of whether or not we allow it to. But yeah, that's my reckon on past lives. Is that clear, or is that a bit muddled? That sounded muddled to me. I do believe in past lives, basically. Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. I do. That sounded muddled, didn't it? Just slap me next time.
That's a long way of coming to the simple answer.
Yeah, I do believe in past lives. Yeah. I know. I go on one, so like it goes through my head, and I know the cogs are turning in my head, and then it opens up another doorway, and I want to go down that doorway, and then it opens up another one. I think, oh, hang on a minute. Well, it is a perpetual now because, yeah, I have written about that before, and with time, gravity, the inertia of time, and and it goes on. And next thing, everyone's asleep. Nayfair, have you been victim to a spiritual attack?
Yes.
Have you?
Yeah. Multiple times. Definitely. That's how I got
Right.
into all this stuff. So it's
Right.
like me and my horses, my house.
Can you share an instance of that? Are you happy to?
Yeah, no, I don't hide it. That's why people sometimes stop talking to me, because I don't hide it. If somebody I've freaked people out before now. I've had psychic attacks in my dreams. My horses have had psychic attacks. My house has had psychic attacks. I've had psychic attacks. My last horse, depending on how crazy you want me to sound, had a partial possession. I didn't think it was demonic. And in the end, I've come to the conclusion it was talking about the past lives. The answer is yes, because I believe that my horse that I had before was an occultist in a past life. And was a human and was in a horse body in order to limit him, so that I could control the environment he was in and limit the forces that were around him. He had an insane amount of psychic forces around him, and he had the partial possession, which I think was the god set, which would tie in with his past as an occultist. I swear he was a Victorian occultist. He was egotistical and sociopathic as well, if such a thing is possible in a horse, because everyone keeps saying they're gentle. But this particular one wasn't. and I had a lot of psychic attacks dealing with him. And there was one time when I was, because I spent most of his life basically trying to bind it up and pull it off as best I could. And as I got close to moving more of it off, I started having, I was saying earlier about coincidence stacking. I had this pattern of things happen, and it's like you get these incidences where you just didn't feel safe, like something was following you. And I had the experience happen to me multiple times, to the point where I was starting to recognize it when I was driving to him when an attack was going on, because he didn't like me interfering, and where people would drive in front of me, just randomly pull out in front of me, usually at crossroads, but it was literal crossroads, which was one coincidence. But they would all drive in front of me, and they would all look at the window and then stare at me as they were going past. And it was like, like in Supernatural, when somebody's possessed and they just all look at you. And it happened to me so many times. I was like, this is a sign I need to be very careful. And so I would always drive very, very slowly on those days when that happened to me, because I had so many near misses, and accidents, near accidents, and that's when I was using the Kali mantra the most. And it's like, and I've had it in dreams and things as well, where I've woken up and had, like, scratches and things on me. But you can tell when you're being psychic attacked in a dream, because I dreamt that I was in a car and we were being sent down this different road, and we got to this crossroads, and I was like, wait a minute, this doesn't look right. This is not my dream. And I half woke up in the dream, and I was like, I don't think we should go down that road that something's pushing me towards. And I used to turn around and come back again. And it's sort of like, but the tone of the dream was so different to normal dreams. It's like, again, I had this pattern over a number, it used to happen about every 6 months or so. And it's like, but there were other things in real life. But I had one where I had a psychic attack. I broke it, and there was a massive bang on my wall outside my house. And as I literally broke the attack, and I couldn't find anything the next day that was the cause of it. It was again 3 o'clock in the morning, which is the classic one. But yeah, I've had lots of attacks over the years. The patterns are recurring, that I've started to recognize them. And then when I start to feel like I'm being followed, and that the things get heavy and difficult, I start being very, very careful on the roads, very careful about anything I'm doing. And it usually will manifest at some point. And then I usually deal with it. And then I always, like say, end up with bangs, knocks, we're I had one where I was like paralyzed in bed. This attack was that strong. I was clearing the walls of the house that I was in, and I didn't even realize there was anything living in the walls. And I was basically paralyzed in bed for about an hour and a half. And I was trying everything I knew to break it. And the feeling of pressure, it was just like unbelievable. And in the end, I think everything I tried, and I ended up going into a room in my head where my mum was. And for some reason, that maternal energy broke it. And it's like, I was just like, whoa. But it was like being hit by a sledgehammer. It was just like, it was so unexpected that I mean, it never happened again, but it was not happy with me for messing about with its house. It was an old Georgian house as well. It got so much stuff in it, like paranormal stuff. But yeah, that was a scary one. But yeah, I have loads of different things like that happening, but mainly around my horses.
Yeah.
A bit random, not very, bit vague, I'm afraid. But
No, I don't think it's random or vague at all, because you love your horses.
Yeah, no. This particular horse
So
had
that's
so
the one. That's
many
the one.
psychic things happening.
That's the one
Many.
commonality there, isn't it? You
Yeah.
got to think to yourself, well, okay, why is it acting up around me and my horses? Well, you love your horses. So of course it's going to, if it's going to attack, it's going to try any and all means.
Yeah, it was
of attack.
trying to split us, basically, because I always said, like, why would a possessed animal come to a person that I'm not an exorcist per se, but can deal with has been dealing with entities if he was not meant to be there. So I, every time I started working on a spiritual level with him, things would go haywire. He'd be unpredictable. He'd never show his face. He always hid his eyes, which is a classic sign of people that possess. They weren't looking in the eye. He always hid his eyes. You couldn't take a photo of him. I used to have battery drains on cameras, battery drains on EVPs. I have almost got no photos of him that are clear. You just couldn't get a clear look at him. It was a bizarre thing. He hated having his photo taken, hated it. And there was lots of little things. I could always tell when it was coming over him because his eye shape of his eye would change when I could see his eye, when he'd let me see his eye. And you just get this sense of danger, like dangerous. I've never felt unsafe around any horses in my life, even the Larry ones. And this horse, I felt like he could, he could cause me serious harm. So I was always very, very careful around him anyways, because he got unpredictable. And then after a while, I started to notice the patterns and I was like, oh, there's a little passenger, I know, I have to be a bit careful around you. And binding things up, binding up the forces around him, and would change his temperament. It's like, it's so, whenever I had to trim his feet, I used to have to spend 3 days doing prayers, binding the energies around him so I could trim his feet. And then if I did, he was pretty well behaved. But if I didn't, it took me hours, and he was an absolute pain. But there was so much around him, and I couldn't document any of it because, like I say, I used to have problems. Could never get any accurate real time. Yeah, it's bizarre.
Did you ever take him out of the field into another field?
I mean, I didn't do very well with him on a livery yard, but when I moved him to a field where there was just him and my other horse in that field, so I had control over the protection that I got on the field, and there was no other external influences other than the fact that I had to rent it, so I still had a little bit of interference. And then I could create a safer place for him. He became a lot more predictable and manageable, and I was able to dig out a lot more stuff from him. This is when I learned about the problem with psychic protection on a combined space, where you've got different, like in a family, that you can only protect to the level of your lowest common denominator. So it's like, the field that I had him in for the last 8 years, I at morning and night, I used to build protections around it, make sure it was clear. I'd put so much effort into it. And then he had protection routine night and morning. I also taught him how to access a guardian angel. It's like, and then he tried using it on me to make me go away, which was quite hilarious. He was a very conscious horse before. Like I say, this is where I start sounding like a crazy person. He was an extremely conscious horse, extremely intelligent. It was a lot of work.
It's a lot, because I think a lot of times it goes back to the previous question. It's not just with past lives, passe, like kind of coming back. I think it very much has to do with the land we're on. I know, for instance, that there's a set of traffic lights on the way to work, and it's funny enough, it's down the bottom of a hill, and it's right at the bottom of this hill, and every crikey, but I'd say about 4 or 5 times a year, at least 4 times a year, at least, they've got to do work on the traffic lights because they go wrong. Every time backs up traffic, and they keep doing work on the lights. And not just that, but there's always accidents. There's always something going on in that area, and I think places of and for people out there, just have a little look at RTAs and a location, and just check that location. Just like Google it, see what you can find out about that location. Because it can go back hundreds and hundreds of years. Maybe there was a gallows there. Maybe there was, it was a crossroads. That used to have these that iron. What were they called? Iron cages, weren't they? They had a special name to them. Where
Like
they
the
put.
tidbits where they hung them up. type
Yes,
thing.
that's right. Yes, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, I couldn't
Yeah,
think of the word.
tidbits. I
Thank
think
you.
they're
Yeah,
called
yeah,
tidbits. I
yeah.
can't remember.
That's it. I couldn't think of it.
Sounds
And
bizarre.
yeah, so maybe it's that. And that's why I said, "Oh, did you
Yeah.
try taking a horse out of the area?" You know.
Yes, because I did actually, because the field that I had him in before, I had problems with UFOs and things there with him. I had a dream that they were abducted by in a UFO, and my older horse showed me that he could tangle himself up and untangle himself, but my other horse went absolutely nuts in this dream. He couldn't get out of the UFO, and I was shouting at these three people. They were like not quite Nordics, but they were humanoids, and they were like, "Oh, I don't understand, go away, you don't know anything." And one of them was arguing, saying we should tell her what's going on, we should tell her what's going on, and the others were like, "Oh, no, she's beneath us, she doesn't understand." So I was just like, well, sod you, I'm taking my horse off of this ship. And
Yeah.
it's like, so I did in this dream, and then I thought possibly there was like a cloaked UFO at the bottom of the field, so I was just like messing about with it. I managed to get it to leave, and as soon as I left it, they all went down into that area and started eating. They never went down into that bit of the field. Never. I never saw them in that bit. As soon as, and I was standing at the top, just standing there, like not doing anything. So they got no cue whatsoever from me that I'd done anything, because I was standing thinking, I'm bloody crazy. This is not going to happen.
Yeah.
I'm going mad. There's literally no proof for me to think that there is something down at the bottom of the field. But I moved it. And as soon as I did, the horse snorted, and they all went down into that area, or the second that it was gone and grazing down there. And then after that, I saw them down there. But that particular field, I saw two shadow entities that looked like the Dementors out of Harry Potter. There was all sorts going on there, to be fair. It's an old area around here, though, to be fair. But it was also clay. And I think the clay had something to do with it, the clay soil. So I moved him up the road, and they were basically on a hill built of rubble. So
Right.
it was a completely different, and it was just out of the area, the local area. So because we've got the castle and everything here, so God knows what's happened. This is like pre-medieval. So just over 20 minutes up the road, another 8 miles away, it didn't have so much psychic energy in, and so I was able to get somewhere with him after that. But yeah, you are right, it didn't stop the possession was something he was born with, I think, but it stopped some of the influences that was making it 10 times worse, if that makes sense. And so I had a much better relationship with him once I moved him, because A, he wasn't on a livery yard, so he wasn't seeing other horses being treated in particular ways, and B, like you say, the energy was different. So my other horse was able to, because he was holding a protection field as well. And I didn't realize this until after he passed, how much he was protecting me. So I thought I was protecting him all this time, but he was actually protecting me. So when he passed, I noticed the change. So he was also involved in it. But it took a lot out of all of us, to be fair. It wasn't the best.
Yeah, I can see on your face. It's still
it broke me. It really did. It broke me. But then you go up against a god. What do you expect? Because that's basically what I did, which I didn't realize at the time. But if I'd have known, I might have changed. Might not have bought it.
Yeah.
But I was like, in for a penny. What am I going to do now? Can't pass this on.
No, exactly.
I didn't know until after.
Daniel Williams. Hello, Daniel. Thank you for joining us, mate. Natalie, have you had a soul overtake you?
No. I've had things try and affect me, but I'm really locked down for stuff like that because I'm like paranoid.
Physically, he says, ? On an investigation.
No, I would never let anything in. I'm really locked down. I don't believe in channeling. So after the whole story, the saga with my horse, I'm so paranoid about it. I mean, I always have been. I'm a very suspicious, paranoid person. And like I say, why is always why do you want to talk to me? Why do you want to do this? So I think that's why I break Ouija boards as well, because I'm like, why am I don't want to feed into this. So yeah, no, I've had things trying to interfere with me, but I would never consciously allow anything to take take over me if I can. I think my natural instinct is to remove myself from those situations. So I'm not like a paranormal investigator that goes towards danger. If I don't feel safe, I'm out of there. Like I said to you before, if I don't feel safe, I'm not indulging in it, because I've seen the dark side of spirituality and I'm not playing with it. You know, if I was pre-prepared and I knew what I was going to do when I went in, but I would still not allow anything to overtake me if I could. And if I could, then I would have to ask for somebody to help. But I like to hope that, because like protection's in place and I won't allow it, that it's not going to happen. But so far anyway, touch wood. Cross fingers.
Was that 2 point? Yeah, it's 2 point. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's good. Yeah, I get what you mean. I get exactly what you mean when it comes to yeah. I mean, I'm sort of like the opposite, really. I just like go diving in. I go, yeah, okay, let's do it. Yeah, let's do it. You know, you know, because I've got sort of you know, I've got this need to sort of know. I just have to, and I know what you mean. Though the dark side is you know, I think everyone knows that, you know, when I had that shadow being, it was like, that was really crazy. You know, that really did affect me. That shadow being was very dark. Haven't felt evil like it, but so I know exactly where you're coming from. Right, Natalie, we've got Phil. I know exactly what you're saying about son having to have everything planned out about routes, places. My son, that's the same. If anything changes, it's meltdown city. Yeah, that's right, Dawn. It's like, yeah, it just, yeah, they have to have it structured and just like kind of planned out. Daniel says, I was put into a sedative
Seductive
sedative state after I got jumped by 6 guys. Would it come out so bad? You can hear things outside of your body. Yeah,
Oh, wow. Yeah. I bet that's a bit freaky, having that happening where you're sedated and you're not quite, and you're still hearing things.
Yeah. I still have it where I'm asleep or semi-asleep and I hear a loud bang, like a front door being slammed.
I get that quite a bit. You know, it sounds like a dungeon door. You know, when you say about the psychic attacks, I know when it's over, because it's a reverberation. It's like a sound that sounds like a dungeon door slamming shut, and you hear like the reverberation of it, and it's the bizarrest sound, because it's not
so real.
It's not an actual door slamming sound, because of where it's coming from. It's from somewhere else.
It's like but it's a thunderous.
Yeah, it's like a boom almost, but not quite.
Boom, yeah.
Yeah, I've never been able to describe it.
I've had that quite a lot, and it's
Yeah,
like, you
I
know,
have. Usually when the psychic attack, or when I'm doing healing and I've shifted something quite big. But it's it's not just me. And that's one of my on my list of what's going on here is probably not quite right. But like I say, it's often when I'm in a slightly altered state of, you know, sort of like tuned in, but it's usually like a sign that something's finished or something's gone. It's I don't know if you find that.
Which brings us, I think so, yeah. Which brings, you know, so like that takes us down for another time. Portals.
Portals.
Yeah, but yeah, for sure. I think I'm going to call it a wrap. 2.5 hours. Are you okay calling it a wrap, Natalie?
Yeah, I don't mind. I can talk for ages, so you have to cut me off.
No,
I need to go and have some dinner at some point as well, to be fair.
Yeah.
But no, I'm happy whenever you are. It's like I can talk for hours. So
I'll tell you what. Would he come on as again?
Yeah, no, happy to come on again. I've had a really nice time, actually. I was dead nervous because I thought, oh my God, it's like
it's only me.
Well, yeah. But yeah, I wasn't sure, because it's been a while since I've done a live, and I was like, and I've not been very social just lately, so I'm like, oh my God, will I be able to remember how to like people?
Yeah,
no, I had a really nice time. Thank you. It's like, I hope I haven't offended anyone by accident or sounded too crazy.
No, you've been lovely. It's been great, and
oh, thank you.
Yeah, Yeah, actually, I tell you what, I'll have a word with you. Are you free Monday?
I
Are you
don't
free
know without
Monday?
checking my diary. I have to write things down in 3D to
'Cause
understand time.
I may have a guest on that is right up your street.
Oh, okay. Well, let me know the details, and I'll have a look. Like I say,
Yeah,
my
I'll do
if
that.
it's not written down in front of me, my autistic brain doesn't process it as a
No
date and a
worries.
time. So
No worries.
I can't
And because
remember
it's
my diary. So
it'll be alive. I did say to the person, I said, "Oh, it's gonna be alive," and but then we get he said, "No, I welcome it." He said, "That's great."
oh,
He said,
okay.
"Yeah, so it's gonna be sure." So I'll message you. I'll let you. Well,
Yeah, let
stay
me know
on.
the details.
Yeah, stay on, and then we'll have a quick chat until I'll tell you. Right. Okay. I'm gonna take you off. Thank you very much, Natalie.
Yes, thank you
Take
for
care.
having me on.
Bye. Right, and thank you, everybody. And I shall bring Rox on to say ta-da. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Well, everyone, that was fascinating, wasn't it? Natalie, what a wonderful guest you've been, co-host. Absolutely amazing. I was forgot to look at the questions half the time. I was like, oh my God, I had to catch up with myself because I was lost in what you were saying. You're just so interesting. So, and everybody's actually loved you. You're just so remarkable how much you know. And you're so enthusiastic, which is absolutely lovely. So thank you very much. And the chat has been amazing. I'd just like to thank everybody on it. It's been a really good evening, and can't wait to do it again. So I hope you all
Oh, there's always something that
fun.
goes wrong. It's a gremlin.
Done. I was talking. What happened?
I don't know what happened there. All right. Yeah.
Anyway, I was
it's-
rapping on in silence, saying how marvellous she
yeah, it's
was,
a
how
liminal
great
space.
everything
All right.
was.
I'll tell you what. Take two. All right. Take two. All right.
Yeah, I'm going. Anyway, have a brilliant weekend. Thank